Hey everybody, Ryan here from Music City Live. Welcome to the episode. I'm here with Canadian hip-hop legends, Choclair and Malichi Male.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Thanks so much for coming on, you guys.
Oh, no doubt, man.
Yeah.
Thanks
no
for the
problem.
invite.
Yeah, thanks for having us out.
Yeah, man. I told you I had to change my shoes for this episode. I had to get the runners on, man. I had to, get a less rock and more hip hop.
Casual down a bit.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Casual it down.
Yeah,
kick back and relax and enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. So, Juno Award winning artist.
Yes.
How many Junos?
4.
4 Junos.
Four
And
Junos.
I read, is that 5 MMVAs?
Yeah, 4 Junos, 5 MMVAs, and a few gold records and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah, I've been working and working.
Yeah, absolutely. And all from Canada.
Yeah, like back in like my first Juno came in, like I think it was 97. It was my first Juno with me and Julie Black. That was my first Juno, and then I had another one with the Rascals, then 2 on my own after that. So I'm going back from 1999 to 2004 or 5. So actually 1997 to 2005. So it'll be those years as I was able to go and get those.
So, truth be told, the first time I ever saw you perform, I was doing lights for the show, and it was you and Julie Black performing at Fanshawe College in London.
I completely remember that. And
do you?
Yeah, because it was one, I think it was off the Ice Cold tour. And that at that point, everybody was touring with everybody. So Cardinal would be with me, Solitaire would be with me, Julie would be with me, Sox would be with me, Ro would be with me, everybody. We just packed up in all our cars and just went. And the reason why I really remember that is because there was this one part, and I forget when of the year, but of that year, I came to London like 4 times in like 2 months. And I know I did Western, Fanshawe, a club, and I think another place like 4 times. And then and I was like, man, there's still places to go out here. Just kept coming to London. And another place I did that too was, but they had 3 different cities, like it was Kitchener and Waterloo and Cambridge. But I would go out there all the time too. And then here I just come into London. It's like, Fanshawe and Western and everything. And it was great. And it's the last time I was here, I think it was in 2019 or 18. I'm trying to remember, but it was with the Classified Canadian Classic Tour. And again, that was great. And every time I come into London, it's always really great. And one of my very, 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 very first shows I ever had, which is sad to hear that it's gone, was at Call the Office. And it was such a great time. And I saw it the other day. I didn't really know where it was located. I just went by and I was like, oh, right on the corner where the Via Rail train thing is around that area. And I was like, York, that's Call the Office.
York and Clarence.
Yeah, right there. That was my not my first show, but my first show in London was at that venue.
Yeah,
so I have a great affection for London because I've been coming here so many times, and now I just live like 20 minutes away.
Yeah, that's crazy to me, man. And we'll get into that. That blew my mind. But yeah, it's Call the Office thing is kind of crazy because the building's still standing. Tony shut it down, and I don't know what I think at some point maybe they thought that someone would buy it to put a condo up or something.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe they will, but right now it's just kind of sitting there hanging out. I don't know.
I saw it there, and I thought it would have been a really kind of cool nostalgia type thing, like for people who remember from the years of like 2000 and up to 2003, 4 that came and saw me there, or we were talking earlier off camera about Snoop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was like, I wanted to do a nice little small show at Call the Office again, and go and check that out. And but then I looked in and it said it was closed, and I was like, oh, it's closed down. That sucks, But yeah,
London, we've lost an incredible amount of venues, man. I mean, it's actually one of the struggles we have right now in London, right? I was part of the committee that helped, get us this UNESCO designation for music, and it's one of the things that we definitely got to work on is more venues.
Yeah, mostly like bigger venues, or not really too much small ones, like like
both. I mean, there is quite a few places to play in town, but one of the struggles post-pandemic is getting insurance. And so if you're a restaurant, you can get insurance.
Okay.
But if you're not a restaurant, it's more challenging to get insurance. Right. And I think that a lot of the restaurants, once they kind of get a taste of the Monday to Friday, regular income, it's kind of tough to go back to being a weekend club or venue.
Correct.
Yep.
So that's a little part of it. And they've been doing it long enough now. It's been quite a few years that I think that they've really enjoyed having that other income. So, I mean, there's still places to play, definitely. And, shouts out to all those places that are giving people a place to come and play. Because, that's still to this day not the easiest thing to run a venue or a club, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we definitely need more of them. And losing some like Call the Office is tough, because those are some of the kind of places that other ones back in the day from the rock genre, like the Embassy and that, like those were places in the 90s that gave people a place that were coming up, gave them a place to play, right? Kind of like probably what happened with you and Call the Office.
Yeah, that was exactly that. I was just a guy that didn't know anything. And I was like, "You're playing in London." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
there it was.
And there's a lot of people that can say that about Call the Office and other venues.
Mm-hmm.
So shouts out to Tony for killing it at Call the Office for so many years. For so many people.
Thanks for bringing me, Tony, or at least having me in your venue back then. Anyways, if you weren't the promoter, but it was your spot, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So. Early days, I want to talk about early days. By the way, this is historic too, because it's the first time I've had two people on the podcast at once.
Oh,
so this is going to be interesting even for me.
Setting trends here, man.
Yeah, there we are.
No, man, it's all good. So I want to, the fact that I do have two you guys on, I want to talk about early days. How did you guys start? What was your start like in music? But also, how did you two guys meet?
Okay. Everything related to music, right? So pretty much I was recording my solo album, right? And I had this track, and the track was called what's the track called?
Choose You?
Choose You. Okay. The track was called Choose You. And I was like, you know what, man, Shocks will sound amazing on this, right? So I hit him up, and Shocks, like, I think maybe a day or so, he gave me back the vocals, right? And I was like, holy crap. Because I was hearing a lot of, stuff like how this guy just goes into the studio and it comes out of nowhere, you know what I mean? And I didn't believe it, right? Because I know how hard it is to write.
Yep.
So later on, I was in the studio with this guy, and I'm like, okay, they put the beat on, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this, and Shock's like, let's go. I was like, what? I said, dude, what are you talking about, man? What do you mean, let's go? Man's like, yeah, I was writing it in my head, man. I was just writing. I was like, this guy, man, like, he's lying. Man puts the beat on. The man's doing the song, pinpointing people in the room. He's talking about stuff that we were talking about as we were driving to the studio. I was like, this guy really does this. I was like,
I take it a little bit serious.
I was like, this guy really does this, right? So pretty much, it was all music related and everything, you know. I mean, grew up in Toronto, and I guess everybody knows each other, right? But these guys were in the East End, right?
Okay,
we're in the West End. So normally at that time, you couldn't really, if you're from the East, you can't go to the West, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So
even in Toronto, eh?
Even in Toronto, man. Wow. So it was kind of hard. So, but there was. Shocks was the only person that could cross boundaries with no issues. You know what I mean? Like
music. It was music, that's right.
Yeah, wow. So he literally could come to Rexdale, that's where I was from, right? Mm-hmm. No issues. But I still couldn't go to Scarborough. You know what I mean? So he had that, I don't know what it was, man. He has this personality that's
smooth.
Yeah.
You know what it kind of was? It was like a lot of it, like when in the beginning too, was just. It's like you were just hungry for what you wanted, right? Like, it's like, I was like, I want to do music. Yeah. And it didn't matter what. Like, like, again, like you're saying, it's like, I lived in Scarborough, but I would take literally the TTC. So that's like 3 hours all the way to Jane Station. Mm-hmm. Get off there, take a bus, 3 hours for the whole trip. Take a bus all the way to like Jane and Dundas to go to my manager's house at the time, day, and record. And then finish at like 11 o'clock, 12, and then take the blue night when they first started putting the 24-hour bus service on.
All the way back.
And then thank goodness they did it. And then I would take that bus all the way back and get home at like 1 and then go to school the next day. So it was like, there's an artist named like me, Socks, and Ro, part of this whole crew called like the Circle with Julie, Cardi, and everybody. We were the only ones from the East End. Everybody was from Oakwood and Vaughan and West.
Yeah.
And so we would always have to go out there to go and meet up because, you know, and then I remember buying my first crappy car for $500 with no floor. And then that made it better because instead of 4 hours to get to the studio, it took me 2.5 because the car sucked. But it was great, standard. And I was able to bring my friends. And so it was just that type of movement. So we just met people because we had to go where everybody was. And
when was this? When was this happening?
This is early 90s. This is like 91, 2, 3.
Yeah.
It's like around that time.
So small world. So my cousin my cousin and me, we were like brothers. His mom and my mom are sisters. And his mom and dad split when he was young. And so I used to go to Toronto all the time because my mom and his mom would go out clubbing, right? Back in the early 90s. So he lived at St. Clair and Vaughan.
Okay.
Right? So me and him, when we were young, we were down there all the time in that area, right?
Yeah.
Oakwood and Vaughan area. We were down there all the time.
Yeah, that's
So I
what
know
Cardi's
exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's where Cardi was from. And then
Absolutely.
going to all the West Indian restaurants on Eglinton
Yep.
West and
Yeah.
everything. And so that's how we kind of did it. And so we just, you know, that's kind of how I kind of came up and we able to go and mix out with music and stuff like that. So, that's kind of, it was just a passion for music and what we wanted to do. We just go wherever we needed to go. We didn't think, didn't study, whatever. It was like, what? There's a studio over there. Let's go and record. That's all it is. Oh, we're going to shoot a video. Could be raining outside. Don't matter if we're going because you just got to feel that way and be that way. Passion for you to do it. And that's how, I guess, you know, like including with Malichi and even with myself doing it, it's like that was just a drive. It was I want to.
Now, you mentioned you get on the bus and go back home at 1 a.m. and then go to school. Like, was there a balance for you between like real life, school, all that jazz, and then music? Or was it just like, I got to do music no matter what?
Well, almost all of it was, well, okay, I understand what you're saying about real life. Yeah, no, it was all at once. It was like, because when I was in high school, I think it was like grade 10 or grade 11. I can't remember. Probably was grade 11. I needed I got a summer job, and my mom was a daycare teacher, and so she got me a summer job at her work, working from like 3 to 6, and so I started working there, and because like in the early 90s, you know, there was the whole single mother pandemic thing that was going on. Like all these girls, there were just a lot of single mothers raising kids in the early 90s and stuff like that. So the faculty at the daycare wanted me to stay because a lot of the children didn't have male influences in their life. And at that time, daycares didn't have hardly any male workers in the place. It was like more of a female dominated place,
Right.
Field. So then, so I got a job to come after school. My school ended at 2:30. I started work from 3, and then I would work from 3 to 6. That's how I was able to get my $500 no floor car, and 3 to 6. And then from 6, then I started driving after that. So by 6, then I'd go and drive down to the studio there, leave at like 1, and then drive back home. But before I got a car, then that's but my daily routine was school, work, studio. And that was it. I did every day. I missed all the basketball games, volleyball games, soccer games, football, everything after school, because the only thing that drove me was that I go to work, and oh my gosh, what I was getting paid. It took me 2 weeks to make $150, if anything, and all that money went gas and studio, because I had to pay for studio. So, you know, like that's where my income went. And my very first pair of red suede champions that my brother ruined on me, and I got so mad at him because it was in the first week he did it. He thought he could skateboard on a red. I told him I'd never love him again.
You never forgotten. That's for sure.
I did, yeah. I was so mad. It got 3 weeks to save up for those shoes.
And you know what? The interesting thing is that, okay, so you're making $150 a week, but people don't understand back then there was no digital. Everything
That's 2 weeks.
Exactly. It was reel to reel. So one of these reels that you recorded on came up to some $400 to $500, right? And you could not make a mistake. You couldn't punch yourself in. You couldn't say, oh, okay, cut. Let me, go over it. So you had to make sure that you got it right. So $500, if you screw up, that's $500 gone. And you see how long it took to make the $500, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where probably the work ethic came from too, especially with Shocks and whatever, So you can't go in there you're working for this money. So you can't go in there and screw up, man. Like, so that's where the precision, that's where the accuracy, that's where the ability to not waste no time in the studio came into play. Yeah.
Yep.
So early days for music for both you guys. What inspired the genre, the style that you guys both ended up getting into?
Okay.
Well, for me, I was always into all types of music. Like there's a joke my friends have that's don't give shocks to ox. Because if you plug it in, like before we had CD players and stuff like that, you plugged it into your car, you'd be like thinking, okay, Shock's going to play some Wu-Tang, some Mobb Deep, something like that. All of a sudden, Quiet Riot comes on. And then they're like, well, what the hell is that? And then I go and put in another one, and then all of a sudden, the Leverts come on, or Run DMC. I listen to everything. So musically, I was just wherever. And then also, like the 80s, I guess now going into, there was no hip hop radio in Canada. Like if anything, you listen to 680 with Tarzan Dan, and you might catch a Paula Abdul here and maybe a Fresh Prince there. But there was no like what you're hearing now. So when you're in the car with your parents or just radio and stuff like that, you're just listening to whatever's on the radio, And so I got into everything. The funny thing that got me into wanting to do it professionally and live was my brother. He was the guy on the block, and everybody knew who he was. They call me Junior because he was the freestyler on the block. They were like, yo, Livy B. And they'd come in, are you going to rap like your brother? And I started picking it up a bit, and whatever. And then I started jotting some stuff down. And I was at a house party at Markham and Eglinton, and my brother went and rapped. And then somebody gave me the mic, said, you going to rap, Junior? You going to rap like your brother? So I went and I did whatever I did. And just one person. And he's part of this group called Usual Suspects. And he just said to me, you're good. You should just stick at it. So I stuck at it. I just stayed at it. And then at that point, then Eddie Murphy Raw came out in theaters. Yeah. And I remember my mom, because we were fans of Eddie Murphy, and my mom was like, we want to go see Raw. And my mom, she's a heavy Christian, very, very religious woman. And she's like, well, I got to go see it first before you go see it because I got to make sure it's age appropriate. So she goes to see it. She comes home, hair white as Moses, with a cane and 2 tablets telling me what and what to do. And said, you ain't going to see that movie. And then obviously the next day, me and my brother went and snuck in and saw the movie. And my thing was that I watched Eddie Murphy sit there and I'm like, he's controlling the crowd. He's not singing. He's not dancing. He's not doing anything. They laugh when he want them to laugh. They stop when he want them to stop. He makes them listen to his story. He's controlling the crowd, a microphone, a crowd controller, an MC. And I was like, and that was what fascinated me because I was like, wow, this guy's controlling the crowd. And in 88, I actually I've always worked. I worked at the C&E Grandstand. So while I'm watching Kiss and New Kids on the Block and Midnight Oil and all these huge bands and going on in the laser shows and everything, and that's all great. And I got to see it all and it was good and the crowd screaming and everything. Eddie Murphy was just standing there telling jokes. And the crowd's losing their shit. And I was like, oh. And that helped me motivate to go. And that's where I started rapping in mirrors, blinking your eyes flash to make it look like it's a strobe lights. Just trying to catch how are you going to look on? So you don't want to look foolish. You look in the mirror and everybody asks me, how do you get your thing when you go on stage? Rap in the mirror. Because then you know what you look like. If you're rapping and you don't know what you look like, then you don't know how you're going to express yourself and do all this, all that practice. And but that's really what got me into it was watching Eddie Murphy on stage, got me into wanting to be an entertainer. I was already enjoying the writing and the elements of it, but stage life, it is different. Yeah, it was one of the different things. I'm comfortable and at home on stage. Studio is the work. The stage is the fun for me.
Okay. Yeah. Now, for me, it's a little bit different because I came to Canada a little bit later, right? So all these Eddie Murphys and all these...
From where?
Africa. I was born in Uganda.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was born in Uganda, came to Canada. The interesting things, by the time I got to Canada, I didn't know any English. So it took me quite a while to learn English.
You could have fooled me, man.
I know. I know.
Now, you know what?
You did fool me, actually.
No, I'm serious, though, because it's one of those things where it's like I didn't know English. And by the time it took me a couple of years to learn English, now I got to learn to spell. You know what I mean? So it took me a couple more years to learn how to spell. So by the time I'm trying to figure out just make it in life, right? That's when that's when music became like a gateway to life, right? A gateway out of everything, right? And we didn't have TVs. We didn't have cable. So it's like I didn't have any TV superstars to look up to. But the cool thing was in Rexdale where I was, I had actual individuals in Rexdale. Like it was actually my peers that motivated me. You know, there was Infinite at that time that came out, and this dude, like, he was like, he was the first dude to me that came out with these hype William videos. Right? You know, New York had Nas, but, you know, Canada had Infinite, right? So then you had a group like Ghetto Concept, you had Born to Roam, you had Red Life, Jellystone. All these dudes were actually in the same 2-block radius. And, you know, Ghetto Concept 1, 2, Juno's Infinite, who went on, Concept, you know, to become a superstar himself. Jellystone blew up as well, too. So, you know, we're all going to similar schools at the same time, too, you know, couple block radius. And I'm there and I'm seeing these dudes, you know, after school. And then I'm looking and it's like, shoot, these guys are at the Junos. They're on Much Music. They're on City TV. So it's like real. It's almost like, hey, like you talk to them, you know, they're your friends, but at the same time, it's like they actually got, you know, they were able to escape the hood and become a beautiful living example of what you're supposed to do, you know what I mean? Even in, you know, rough areas like that. So I actually had peers that I actually visually seen.
Yeah, like you had celebrity friends.
Correct.
Yeah, your friends that you're like, oh man.
Yeah, and that was crazy because Juno's like what, 20,000 people at the Junos sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, Get a Concept up there winning 2 Junos back to back. You know, Maestro was also a humongous. I remember I did my first talent show lip sync, right? So we pretend we were somebody. I still even got the video right now, right? I got the video. I'm dressing in my black tuxedo. I'm doing Let Your Backbone Slide. I'm doing the backflip that, you know, Black Eye did. Did in there, Frankie. I mimicked everything, and I was like, yo, like this dude is Canadian. It was kind of hard for me to relate to any other international superstar because, you know, I didn't know them, but these guys, I knew them. So by me seeing them, I knew I could do it. You know, so that's where I took it from music to business to fashion. So I looked at music as a way of music was my my business card to gain a clientele, to gain a following. And now I want and gain slight celebrity, right? So now once you have the celebrity and this business card, how do you monetize that?
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that's where I ventured into other areas in business. You know, you gain the following through music because music's the only thing in this world where you could be nothing and then the very next day you can have 1 million followers. Now, once you have the 1 million followers, what do you do with that? You know what I mean? Sell them a t-shirt, sell them sneakers, you know, sell them a business, all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much what inspired me, just regular, everyday friends that I seen on a daily basis.
It's funny that you said too, because I like when you're talking about the music, because I always tell some of my friends sometimes, like when they ask you, like when you're getting into other things and you just start doing other stuff, and I always tell them it's like almost kind of related, but just a different type of metaphor. It's like I always say to them, I was like, music's my French fries. Everybody loves McDonald's French fries. My mom even eats McDonald's French fries, you know. But I'm trying to outside of those fries because my mom, like I was never, I'd never had. We didn't drink juice. Anything with sugar, didn't have it. Pop, oh, that's a no. If she thinks me drinking pop today, she's like, "What are you drinking that for?" You know. But whatever. I whatever. That's how she was. So, but the only and McDonald's, no. Except for when they gave away the Big Mac and they gave $1 to the Ronald McDonald's house for the kids.
Yeah.
Only time she would take us to McDonald's. Wow. And the only thing she would get because she knew we wanted the Big Mac was always the fries. Anything. If she wanted anything, if we came home and we had something, it was the fries. So I was always like, the music's my fries. Now I'm also going to get the Big Mac going, the McDLT, the McPizza, whatever you want to go and call it. Because, yeah, that's my business card. And then as I was kind of looking at it that way, I think I was trying to remember the movie that it was called, but it was about McDonald's. I don't know if it was a movie or a documentary. And someone made the point of saying, you know, McDonald's stores are really real estate. You just like their burger and fries.
Yeah.
Every property.
Yep.
Dude, how many times do you see a McDonald's go out of business? They usually just switch locations.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, it went back to this is the fries. Because all McDonald's is they sell real estate and sell stuff out of it. They just hold property. They're a restaurant, of course, but like, you know, their big thing is any value land they sit on is worth something.
Absolutely.
You know, so I just took that, and that's kind of like what you're saying with your business card. I just called it my French press.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, that's part of the journey, right? Part of the journey. And some people get there. Like some people realize, because music sort of, part of my story too is the same. Like I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was like 1 year old, and I had 13 years of the worst epilepsy. And it was like a really not great young childhood. And, you know, but my dad played in a band, right? And I would come and hang out, and he'd be rehearsing and stuff. And, you know, so I found music super early on. And you're right, there was no like even dance music, you know, there was like pirate radio and things like that. But like there really wasn't much in the 80s at all. And even like the early 90s, it was just starting to break with things like EC and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that for me, it was like that, like being exposed to music through him that sort of helped me sort of, you know, figure out my situation. Cause I like, you know, I had kids coming up to me saying like thinking I was broken and like all this kind of stuff, choosing me last for the baseball team, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I originally, when I was a little kid, I thought, you know, oh, I'm going to be an astronaut or a lawyer or something, you know, like, but I found music and I found DJing. Actually, I found DJing when I was in grade 6, and I DJ'd the grade 8 dance at my elementary school. And I rocked it, you know, and I had no idea what I was doing. My dad bought me a couple of CD players from Price Club, and I gave me a little PA to use, you know, and I did great. And then from there, I went on to, you know, buy my own 1200s and vinyl. And, you know, speaking of Call the Office, Dr. Disc, London, used to be right beside it. And I used to spend a lot of time in there shopping for vinyl. And, you know, I'd drive to Toronto. I'd go to Play the Record. I'd go to, you know, I'd go to all the stores in Toronto too. Tracks, you know, and we do that, you know, as DJs, we drive, you know, I was young, man, 15, 16, 17. I'd go however I had to get there, bus, you know, beg my friend to drive me, whatever. And I'd go and I'd spend every last DJ dime I had on vinyl. And
you had to get 2 coffees too, right?
And like you talk about let your backbone slide. I was the same way, man. I memorized every word in that track, but I had it on 12-inch. I had the single. And so, you know, I mean, for me, music in that respect, you know, helped save me too. And by 90, I want to say 97 or 98, we were talking off camera about Dr. J and like soca and all that. I mean, that was a big part of my life, man. Never mind just hip hop. I mean, there was a place in town here called The Ramp. And one of the guys that I played with at the time, he was big into all those genres. And so he taught me about some of those genres. So we were playing these late night sessions where people from Toronto and Detroit would come and we played till like 10 in the morning. We go all night long. But we would play these like, you know, reggae, calypso, booty, you know, hip hop, R&B. You start
Uncle Luke from back in the day, Two Live Crew, man.
So we would do these sessions, and that was a huge education for me at that age because I was super young. But for me, it was like it literally saved me, man, in a way, you know. And then that's how it started. But then it became a business, exactly like what you're saying for me. I mean, we're standing in it, right? Like this entire thing came from me being a DJ, and I went and bought a CD player from a guy. And he told me he was a dealer for it, and I bought it from him. And the next thing I know, it breaks, and he couldn't fix it. And my dad calls the company and finds out he wasn't a dealer. And it happened to me a couple times. And then my dad said, well, what do you want to do about it? You want to start your own store? And I went, sure. And here we are.
There you go.
So, you know, you gotta monetize, man.
Correct.
Because, you know, you gotta stay relevant. You know, my dad always said that about clubs. You know, he's like, you gotta be the place to be. And, you know, sometimes after, you know, 4 or 5 years, club may have to rebrand, change things up, but that's just part of the business. And if you're in the business, you know, you get that side of it going, then you got longevity, right? That's how some of these bands like the U2s and the Madonnas and all these people, that's how they end up with decades and decades in the industry. Is because of that, right? You look like guys like Dr. Dre, man, coming up with Beats by Dre.
Beats by Dre.
You know?
Because if you look at it, right, every single individual, every single musician right now that's actually still, you know, relevant and making a ton of money, it has nothing to do with music. Dr. Dre, majority of his money, Beats by Dre. Jay-Z, probably one of the greatest rappers of all time, probably one of the highest selling ever. All this music comes from Rock Nation and all these business ventures, right?
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg, it's everything but music, right? So it's like Eminem, he has, Sirius XM,
Shady
Shade 45, and a whole bunch of other stuff. 50 Cent,
movies.
all his TV shows, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much they took their celebrity and monetized it. Right. So music is I think a lot of younger individuals, they just concentrate on music and stop, not realizing music is your way to get the fan base, to get influence. But now it's the real art is, okay, what are you going to do with that fan base right now? What are you going to do with that influence right now? You got to turn that into career, because at the end of the day, music's your young man's sport. You know what I mean? So when you can't be at 45 years old, be the hottest new rapper around. So you got to somehow do what 50 is doing, take his celebrity and become one of the greatest TV, producers on the planet right now.
Yeah.
One of the things too is also with when you're younger is that you're also thinking just like your head's just into music, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's good now that because people are seeing like how people can go and monetize their careers off of just their music and everything. But a lot of times, sometimes you're not focused on that at the time because you're just rapping, always writing, trying to get in the studio, jumping on people's songs, trying to get people to jump on your songs and everything like that. And I think now that because you've seen like the Maestros do it, and myself and the Cardis and the Julies and the Sox do it, and then now you've seen the Drakes and the other people doing it and everything. Like people kind of go into it with that mind frame, like they're like, they know that they want to do music, but they also want to do everything. And like Malichi is saying, it's like most people like now they're just like brands. Like everything's a brand. Like
Yep.
Everything's a brand. It's not even like an artist. It's like you look at, I was gonna say one, but he's in a whole bunch of trouble right now. I won't say him. But you go and you look at like, but yeah, like you look at like Rick Ross, and Rick Ross, all he does is his whatever, his vodka or whatever it is, his Wingstop, his restaurants, all that stuff. And he drops this record here, there, and probably does a Young Jeezy. Like shoot, I think he put his first album out in 5 years. Rihanna, it took 10 years, I think it was, before I don't even think she released an album. I think it was just a single for the Super Bowl.
There you go. Rihanna's a billionaire, has nothing to do with music.
Nothing to do with music. And it's like, that's what it is. It's it's good and bad at the same time, because then you lose out on the parts where, when you're like first starting and you're in the studio and you're just writing your heart out, everything is in there, the way that you flow and put it out there and everything. You're just like, take me, and you just walk away from the studio and you're drained and drenched and just tired, like that's like you've all in, and you could still go all in now when you've been doing it for a while, but you measure, you leveled, you don't, because you might have to leave there and have a show that night. You could be doing a studio session in the day and have a show in the evening, or leave or whatever. Like there's so much more, so you kind of get into it with that mind state on, and that's good. But like I wish I had not a mentor, but knew some place I can get myself mentored about that when I was starting in the early days. Because when you're starting in the early days, you're just rapping and you have that dream in your head. I'm gonna be there. Like around that time, who was huge. It was like, I'm gonna be Craig Mack. Like I'm gonna be one of the Wu-Tangs and all these other people, Heavy D, you name it. Like you're striving for that. And then now, and that's when you're first starting. But now it's like you kind of like you strive for that too as well.
Correct.
But you also have other things in mind.
Correct.
Back then, you were just music there and very tunnel vision. Now you're like music, and there's also all of this that I could do too. So that's good for people nowadays, and they got more of a leg up.
Correct.
That we had when we were coming.
Well, I was just gonna say that. Like, what's the difference between now and back in the day? Because that was one of the questions I had, and I think that's a really good segue to it, because back then, like the way that you explain it, it's like you were idolizing, Craig Mack and Heavy D and these people, and you're like, I want to be like that. Mm-hmm. And in your mind, I think at the time, and you can speak to this, but like in your mind at the time, like that's what you saw what you saw, but you didn't know what was behind that.
No, nothing.
You know what I mean? And now, because you're a little older and you've done it and you've seen it and you've talked to a lot of people, you met people, you have a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to share that. Like, how do you see today being different, because for me, I see it different in a sense that some of these things you guys are talking about making things a business with music, is much more achievable today through having access to people,
Correct.
through internet, through social media, through the ability to market yourself as a brand, all this stuff. But back in those days, like we were talking about 2-inch tape, back in those days, it was different.
Yeah, these dudes had to travel from city to city, country to country, finding DJs. Yo, here's my record. Like everything was by hand. You know what I mean? It was crazy. So when we're in Canada, and was it Father Time? Tell them the story about Father Time, man.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, like the way that Father Time came out, like, okay, so it was a lot harder back then. Like like we were saying, there wasn't even an industry for any hip hop. Like there was a rock industry. And the funny thing is that a lot of these bands that came out in the 80s, like the Bryan Adams and the Platinum Blondes and the Gowans and all these other guys, I had no idea they were Canadian. Well, I was young too, but I had no idea. I just was like, hey, I like that Bryan Adams, Corey Hart. And then I saw the Corey Hart signature, not standing in the dark, when sunglasses at night, standing in the dark, I think it's Platinum Blonde. And funny how I know that stuff, right? Like just off the top of my head, that's what I was listening to.
Better watch it, man. Someone's going to hire you to be a DJ soon.
I do. And when I DJ, like my friends, like I'll go to a friend's house, you put music, I always play like, it's not what you want to hear, it's what you need to hear. Yeah. That's my whole
the music education.
That's
with
it.
Choclair.
I'll play you
there's
something.
The new TV. There's a new new podcast right there.
Just the miseducation of instead of Lauryn Hill, Choclair.
Correct.
And then all I'll do is DJ, play the flute, like.
I love it.
But yeah, like it was a lot different, and I think to a degree of where like you see. Like people
Sorry,
like,
don't mean to cut you off, because how were you able to take the 21 Years B-side and Father Time to New York? Like, how was that?
Well, it was like, so at the beginning it was like, again, we were at the early stages, like we would get frustrated with sending in demos. You always send them into the record company, and usually they don't have time, they don't care, or something like that, unless there's someone, give me the brand new, freshest hip hop R&B person out there, and then they're looking. If you they get in the mail and they're not looking, I'll check it on a day that I have nothing to do. And so we got tired of that. And so me and my manager at the time, who lived up by Dundas and Jane, we were like, we're tired of trying to send in demos. We should just do a record. I actually was giving up on doing music at that point. I was like, I was just like, I'll just be behind the scenes. Like I've been rapping for like, what is that going to be, 93? So I've been rapping for about 5 years now, young, still don't know anything about it, right? And so I decided to start a label, and Socrates had a song called Father Time. And back then, it was like there had to be a B-side. We're a record company. I'm not really an artist, but we have Sock's song. We don't have a B-side. Okay, Shocks, you rap, make a B-side. So I make song 21 Years. Father Time plays, and it did real well. We used to have to bring it into New York, pack up a big green caravan, 11 people in a 9-seater, drive like 12 hours to New Brunswick, New Jersey to pick up the vinyl, and go to Brooklyn to pick up the sleeves.
Wow.
And then sit there all night and put the stickers on them. Then go to the post office and put them in envelopes and mail them all over the country. And mailing's not cheap, and follow up. And then back then too, the cell phone plans, it wasn't even like all day across Canada. It was like they charging you per call, per minute.
Oh yeah.
So that's
expensive.
It was expensive. So you had to put all that work into it, and I think for the most part that helped build up almost like a longevity, because the work that we had to do, you weren't going to do it if you didn't care. It's too much work. It was just too much to do. Like now everything's simple, like we have to go through yellow pages and phone book pages. I just Google it. I remember my mom had a whole thing of encyclopedias. I don't even know how much it costs. Nobody has encyclopedias unless it's for fashion. Like, like it put up in your thing, and maybe you might pull one out and the pages, because nobody ever reads it, because everybody just Googles. You know what I mean? And so that work ethic had to be in there. And I'm not saying people don't work hard now, because it's just a different type of work. Like there you had to be everywhere. You had to be on the phones. You had to go everywhere. Here now you could just Zoom, email call or something like that, or FaceTime or something like that. So so the way that it worked for us, it was like a lot of hands-on work, where like things now, you want to get 1,000 DJs your song. The work is just to find out their emails. And then you just blast them and follow up and do all these little things. It's not like you have to go take them out for dinner, meet, handshake, treat them to a night, invite them up to Toronto and treat them, put them up in a hotel, and so they like you. Like you create a relationship. Now, there's relationships, but they start late. Where these relationships back then started early. Like you had to meet them, then they had to, because people's time is worth something. If I'm gonna take this guy over here, come and see my show tomorrow night. It's gonna be good. Oh, I got a bunch of okay, yeah, I'll come. And that's you build. Oh, I saw your show. It was great. And then you keep that and you create relationships. That's exactly how I ended up getting signed to Virgin. Somebody, not begged, but it was like MCA, Sony. Well, MCA was Universal, so but still MCA, Sony, and EMI, which was also Virgin. Those were the three big labels. Warner, they weren't really doing hip hop. They weren't really known for hip hop at that time. And stuff like that, or wasn't well known for hip hop. So that's what we did. We had to get them to come out to the show. And then we built a relationship over there, and then just time and working that. And then to the point where it got to a point where the guy's name is Russ Hergert. He was the one, he said, and this is 97. So this is right after I won my first Juno with Julie. And when I won my first Juno with Julie, was the song we did was the first day in person we were introduced to each other. We were just at the studio. I knew her from before because she would run with Cardi and everybody like that. And we kind of knew each other. She knew of me. I knew of her because of our friend 6 Degrees of Separation there. But that was the first time that we did a song together on that studio. And then we won it in 97. And first time we met face to face. And then that's when Russ Hergert was like, and then at that point I had Let's Ride Out, not out, recorded back in late 96, 97. And Russ took time. He was like, hey, let me hear some stuff and whatever. And then I remember him saying to me, Let's Ride. He goes, I don't care whatever you release from now until, save that song for me. And I was like, okay. So put on the back. This is early 97. So we put out other songs, Flagrant, and other songs for other people. Solitaire's record, help with Julie Black's Rallying record, a more Socrates record, Danny O records. I put out like 15 vinyls as a record company. Some of mine were in there, but a lot of other people's. Cardi's first record. All these people's first record.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, On With the Show. It's on Capitol Hill Knee Deep Records. My record label was Knee Deep Record. Knee Deep Entertainment is probably what it was called on the thing. Yeah. And we did it, and that was it. So I saved it, and then I got signed to Virgin. And then Russ was like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is why I wanted you to save this. Little X's very first video was the video for me and Julie Black, What It Takes, that won the Juno, my first Juno. He came back from working with Hype Williams, but back then there was this like thing about Canada. It's like B-rated. You know, that's good for Canadian. Like that was always like the thing. It was always, that's good for Canadian. Always. So Little X goes and works with probably one of the biggest upcoming, he's probably already established, but before he started doing all the Janet Jackson and Busta Rhymes videos and all these $2 million videos. And he just came back mentored by this guy. And X was already good. And people didn't really want to give him it because Canadian. So we said, come and do our video. So he did What It Takes and whatever. So he returned the favor and he said, I'm going to do your Let's Ride video.
Oh, wow.
And so Little X did the Let's Ride video. That was my first video. And again, like I said, that came out in 99. So I was like 3 years old the song was by that time. And it all came together. So that's what I'm saying. It's like the work ethic and relationships, they're stronger. Like the people I know, I still know them from 20, 30 years ago. Correct. Where like here you have people, by the time people see this, it might be old news to them, but they have Kendrick and Drake and J. Cole and Rick Ross. These guys are less than 10 years friends. You know, like maybe 2010, 09, something like that. Yeah. And now they're beefing. And I still have the same relationship because you needed to build a core. I'm not saying everybody stays like that. You know, the things crack and stuff like that at certain parts. But that's what I'm saying about then and now. You had to forge a relationship and they last long because we're all doing it together. We're all in this one movement. And there's no time for crabs in the bucket, as Chaos would say. It's like, because there's a room for all of us. And if Ghetto Concept's out there killing it, and I'm not even from the same side. I'm from the same city. But if I'm like, yeah, Ghetto Concept deserves his flowers. Yeah, give it to him. That's good. Now you have more people doing it, and that's how we did it. And we raised it up to where it was, to where people could come out when you started getting Brass Monks and the Keisha Shantays and everything, because that was built by us creating a coalition and building up a strong thing. And that's how it was back then. To where now people now it's everybody's, this guy's over here, this guy's over here, this guy's over here. They might collab, but they're all in their own pockets. where then they were still in your own pockets, but we understood what the challenge was. And we knew that we could only do it if we supported each other. And it's why we all know each other a lot these days from back then, because we were always on the same showcase. Always hear, hey, what's up, Shax? Hey, what are you recording? What are you recording? And that's kind of his. So that's how I see it then to now.
Do you think that the struggles are just different now for people coming up because people are more disjointed? Like there is less connection there?
Yeah, there definitely is a struggle. It's different. It's like, you know, look at it like this. It's like, say 1901, 1889, the struggle was you either had to have a horse or not, or your wheel was broken, you didn't have a buggy or something like that happened. That was a lot of shit. Now, your battery's dead, or you have a flat tire, you don't have wipers, one light's out, you know, police behind you, you don't have a sticker, you know what I mean? That's this problem. They didn't have sticker problems with the horse and buggy, you know. So, or maybe they did. I wasn't around back then, but yeah, they have. I'm not saying it's easier now and whatever. It's probably a little bit more accessible because there's more things and stuff to use to help you. But yeah, it was just different back then. It was vinyl. That was our only thing of music. Yeah. Now vinyl's a collector's item.
Man, I used to always say I was in some record pools back in the day as a DJ in the 90s. And I remember getting those boxes of vinyl, and how out of an entire box of vinyl, I might have kept one or two. And even at that time, I was already, because you know my father had a business, and I was already well conscious of how much time and money went into all those pieces of vinyl.
Yeah,
and I would think to myself like, man, this is just burning money. Like it was needed at the time. Obviously, you needed to do it for promotional purposes to try and get your tracks out. Like you said, like not even as crazy as what you were talking about driving to the East Coast and then nailing them all out yourself. But like as a DJ, when I would get these boxes of vinyl, I would take the time to listen to every single one. I would, because man, it blew my mind as a young guy when I was getting these boxes of vinyl. It blew my mind how many of these things were coming out that sometimes people didn't even give them a chance, because it was like, oh, it's a remix of so-and-so's, it's a remix of Julio Iglesias or whatever it is, you know, like, and it's like, I'm not ever going to play that. They don't even put it on, right?
Yeah, they don't even do it. Yeah, I was telling you, man, about that the other day. Is like people just, I talked to, I won't say who it was, but people know who he is if I was to say. So I remember a few years back, I was trying to give him a song to put on the radio and everything. And he was like, man, you know what? We don't break records anymore. We just play what's hot. And then going to what you were saying, when you got whatever many spins or views they have on YouTube or Spotify, where like what you were saying, when you got the box, because I used to DJ, I was a big DJ, like scratching everybody. I did house party, basement parties, like, and stuff like that. And
those were some of the best.
They were the best. They were great. And you went through the vinyl because you wanted to have the newest thing. Yeah. I'd listen to radio. They'd always be like, you heard it first here. You heard it first here. All the time. And you wanted to be the first one. The first time I heard Biggie Smalls' Who Shot You, it was on the flip side of One More Chance, the remix. And we all knew that song, they had the video and everything. And all of a sudden I hear bing, bing, ding, ding, ding. And as we proceed, I was like, what is that? I didn't know who it was. I was like, what is that? So, like a basement party DJ is just on like a table here. Yeah. So you walk over to wherever that was and you go over there and you look down on the thing. All I see is Bad Boy. And I was like, Bad Boy? I haven't heard this song because, those guys were putting records out. Biggie Smalls' Who Shot You could only find it on that vinyl. Man, next day play the record tracks and they're all gone. Yep. And that's how they broke music. And they don't break music now. They're just like, what's hot? And they play it. And that's a shame, because that's how you're saying, you big box records, you went through it because you wanted to find that record.
And I did. There was times when some of the best records that ever came through, I was in a couple different record pools, and some of the best records that came through were white labels. Yeah. Literally didn't even say Bad Boy.
Who it was on it.
Like literally it was a white label. I'm like, what is this? Yeah. And there was a couple of tracks I remember, like, because it was like mid to late 90s, and there was a bunch of different types of dance music genres that were coming out at the time. And I'm going to try to remember the name of the track, but it escapes me right now. But there was this one, it was like the first white label that like literally ended up going to #1 for weeks on the charts. And I broke that track in London, Grand Bend, a few places around here in the clubs. I broke that track and people lost their minds. Yeah. And it was Daft Punk, One More Time.
One more time.
And it was on a white label. I got it on a white label.
You had that?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
And it came out, and there was a bunch that came out like that were like. It was wild. And I can't even imagine, because I would hear stories from some of the guys from TO because it was kind of like you said, you know, there was only so many copies. So guys who had big residencies in Toronto, they were going to get the copies that were available before I did. Because I was in London in a smaller town and, you know, smaller.
They would call in at like Eugene, be like, yo, hold these records for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd hold them because they were known. They were known DJs.
That's right.
Sure,
And so I had to kind of work even my way up to get to know Eugene and the guys, you know, that were there, Matlock and all the guys who were there at the time to get those guys to hold records for me, you know? But it's like, that was a thing. And I think that it's funny because that goes way, way back. Like, I had one of the guys I had on the show recently, DJ Williams. His dad was a big radio DJ from here in town, from back in the day. And he was known as the first guy to ever play the Beatles on the radio in North America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's big.
And that's back in the day.
Wow. Yeah.
So we talk about us as DJs being the ones breaking records.
Yeah.
That's something that had been going on for decades and decades and decades, right? As part of the culture. And I mean, I can't even tell you the amount of times I've done, whether it's a small frat or big basement party, all the way up to full clubs, man. Me rocking out a set for people and they get used to my sets and my sound. You know, we talked about scratch earlier. You know, there's all kinds of these guys that even to this day are still wicked at it.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like that's part of the experience of going to see a DJ or being even at a club where there's a DJ, right? That's, people always say to me, like, what makes your club different or what, you know, it's like, well, it's an experience.
Yeah.
And part of the experience is the DJ. So to me, I actually look at it as a thing that I wish there was more emphasis from the club owners, from the venue owners. I wish there was more emphasis put on, you know, DJs that took the extra time to get the craft right.
Correct.
Yeah,
you know?
no, that's so true. I went to Windsor Sports Weekend, again in high school. And that was the go away for us at like 18, 17 years old or something. Everybody packing a van, 10 people in a hotel room with joining doors, and you're there and you go to whatever's going on. Kid Capri's playing this sports weekend. I know of Kid Capri. Never seen him perform before because I was too young to go out and he's always in the States and I wasn't crossing like that. So here's Kid Capri playing at this club.
Okay.
You know, we were like 18, 19, whatever it is, to get into clubs at that age. I think it was 18, no, 19, whatever it is. So we were there, we're playing. And Kid Capri goes out and he starts playing. And there's one thing, and like you're saying with the DJ experience, because it was just like a hall. Like it could have been like, you know, like the local Legion place, you know, like just one of them places. He comes in there, he plays, and all he's playing is the first 4, maybe 8 bars of the song. So let's say OPP is big right there, right? Now here's so everybody's getting hyped. Right before you're about to sing the song, drops another big one, and then all of a sudden it's like top billing by Audio 2. So right there, so now you're reacting to that song. As soon as you're about to MC, my people, as soon as you're about to do that, drop something else, another big record. And I remember myself. You know when you see people lose, like, I guess it's the mosh pit? Yeah. I remember me and my friends all from high school, we were like listening, and like now this is like probably like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's actually earlier than that because that's when clubs used to end at 1. So it's like maybe 11 o'clock at night. Full swing, clubs going on. Yes, playing. I'm like looking for things to throw, like I want to break something. Like I don't know what to do. And that was I always and never will forget that experience. It was just track after track. It was one of the best parties. Like, you know, when you're leaving, you have that sweat mark down the middle of your back and your shirt's all whatever, and you just you don't even care. You're just like, yeah, I come out your head because it wasn't winter, but the steam's coming off your head. And that was and that's exactly what you're saying. Gay Cabria was like, that was, I never forget that. And that's like going back almost 30 plus years now. And that was one of my best DJ experiences ever. And that's it. And the vibe, the atmosphere, the way it looks, you know, like the club we were talking about, rebranding. Like, look at, what's that? I don't even know if it's Live or Live, the one in Miami. And they always keep rebranding because they have other people coming in. They have shows. They have probably the regular nights and stuff. And it's just that, the way they do it, man, you know, it's like you had to rebrand. You had to be creative and you had less to work with. back then, you know. So that's that's kind of how I saw it from then. The DJ aspect and breaking music and records.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, it's just different. I think it's different now, for sure. You know, in a lot of ways, but I think in a lot of ways it's better. It's better now.
Yeah.
It's easier now to do the marketing piece, for sure.
correct.
If you got the following, goes back to what you were saying, right?
correct.
You got to have that following. So, you know,
have
you
the
got to
following.
focus on making yourself sound different, look different, be different to get your following, you know, and then once you got your following, like you said, you got to figure out a way to monetize. Because otherwise, you ain't gonna stay relevant, man.
Absolutely. And I remember the first time I realized that. Actually, I was doing a show, and it's a while ago, but you know they were paying me like $500 for the show, right? That was back then. That's a ton of money, right? But I remember I started selling T-shirts at the shows and hoodies and hats, and then they'll pay me $500. But by the end of the whole event, I had about maybe $4,000 worth of merch. And that's when I was like, what in the world just happened, right? And that's when I switched gears. And I think the kids today, they understand that right now. They understand the brand, you know? When we entered the music realm, we were just tunnel vision. It's just we were obsessed with the music. The music was our heart. So for us to do anything outside of music, it was almost like we're selling out. I remember back in the days, it's like if you're a rapper and you do a commercial, you're selling out. You know what I mean? Somebody's want to give you $100,000.
Why would people say that though back then?
Well, it's like, you know what it was, man. It was they took it too seriously.
Yeah,
that's what it was, man. They took it too seriously. They didn't understand the aspect of taking care of your family. They all they understood was I want to be the greatest rapper, even if I was broke. They didn't understand I want to have longevity.
It was about the art and not about the longevity of
correct.
Right?
But later on, as the years kept on going, you know, Shocks right now it's over 30 years. He's still here. You know what I mean? He just finished a commercial for the Blue Jays. Did a sync licensing with
the insurance company.
The insurance company. You know, it just kept on going, man. I'm doing a bunch of elementary school tours where I'm doing motivational speaking.
I saw
and stuff
that.
like that. Yeah, it's like so what it is that I learned so much over the years, and you actually hit it on the knob right here. The key word you just said was different, right? Throughout my whole career, and I'm sure Shocks could attest to this, was anything good that has ever happened in my life, it was because I was different. That was it. You know what I mean? That was completely it. Whether I sounded differently, whether I looked at life differently, whether I approached a business idea in a different mindset, every single time I was completely different, that's when everything took off. When I decided to, I guess, be like, when I tried to be like everybody else, everything flopped. Like nothing worked, right? So that was a concept that I realized that, you know, the younger generation needed to hear, because a lot of the times right now we get, you know, like destroyed and criticized for being different, you know, opposed to, no, you know what? The fact that you're different is what's going to make you stand out from everybody else. And that's what I was trying to, that's what I was trying to say with Shocks, man, because when he came out, you know, he was in this little, because I analyze music a lot, right? I analyze music a lot. You know, Wu-Tang, they were like, you know, they came hardcore and all that kind of stuff. You had the, you know, the conscious rappers, Talib Kweli and all these dudes. But, you know, Shocks, I studied him a lot because he was in this small little bubble by himself where he was respected by the gangster rappers, and then you respected by the backpack rappers. And you know, when we do shows, a lot of times they usually line us up or line him up with rock artists, right? So and we're doing shows with rock artists. You know how on Spotify they say, okay, you get your platform. I mean, your artist page, and then it says these are the individuals that listen to this guy also listen to this, this, and this. And the other day I actually looked at mines, and the first person obviously was Shocks, right? So if you listen to Malichi, other artists listen to Shocks, but the next group was Rage Against the Machine.
Wow.
And Tragically Hip. You know what I mean? Crazy. And that's exactly what he was talking about. When you give him the aux, he's not dropping hip hop. He's dropping every single genre, country. And I think what happened was Canadians, they didn't want to give it to us. The rest of the world, especially the US, never wanted to give it to us because we were the number one genre of musicians on the planet. There's nobody else in this world that has a collective of musicians that are better than Canadians. And for example, like, who's the biggest pop artist in the world right now? Like, is anybody bigger than Justin Bieber? Pop artist, you know what I mean?
No, I mean arguably Taylor Swift, but she's a pop country crossover.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is anybody collectively, let's say, catalog wise, is anybody bigger than Shania Twain?
No.
You got Justin Bieber, Canadian, Shania Twain, Canadian. You got Kendrick and Drake right now going back and forth. By the end of the day, it's different levels when you're talking about global appeal. Nobody's bigger than Drake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got the best hip hop artists on the planet, right? Is there anybody better than The Weeknd or selling more records than The Weeknd when you're doing like R&B or soul music? Nobody's bigger than The Weeknd, right? So if you actually look around completely, and then you got individuals like, Tory Lanez that's able to combine reggae, hip hop, rock, old school. And then you get into the rock, and you got Nickelback. You say what you want, but they got huge
man.
music,
They're
right?
so big.
Yeah.
So collectively, there's no country in the world that has the number one artist of every single genre all within one little country. Nobody could do it. So Canada, it took a long time, and I sit back and I say, you know what? All this music stuff, like Shocks was saying earlier, like, you didn't know Bryan Adams was Canadian and all these other guys, but everybody knew Shocks was Canadian. Everybody knew Socrates was Canadian. Everybody knew Cardinal Fisher was Canadian. So I would say the urban or hip hop realm is what brought Canadian music to the forefront. Drake. Drake right now, take away the music element of it. Drake single-handedly is the number one person globally he brought in over $5 billion worth of global tourism money just on his name alone. There hasn't been one single artist on the planet anywhere in the world that was able to do that for a country. You know what I mean? So once again, urban music is what catapult, the country into the spotlight. Now everybody knows about Toronto. Everybody knows about Canada. Everybody knows about all these Canadian artists.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's true. And there's, I won't name names, but there's some dance artists that, when they won their big awards down outside Canada, they didn't even say they were from here. You know
what? It's because I don't understand it because I always said I was, but I could understand sort of to a degree because if you never saw, let's say, the Bare Naked Ladies in Speaker's Corner, you wouldn't really know. Mm-hmm. The reason why, I don't know how they got picked up, and whichever, but I remember their Speaker's Corner thing that they did. Then they were going down, what's it, Eglinton or Kingston or Kennedy, in that car where they're sitting on the back of the flatbed truck. And you kind of knew, but then they blew up in the States.
Yes.
And it's kind of like our, I don't know, you want to call it Achilles heel or something like that or whatever. There's a metaphor for it that I can't find right now, but it's like you go somewhere else and blow up there, then home wants to claim you.
Yeah. I had this conversation with Justin Timberlake. Yeah. I did when NSYNC came to Canada, I did a show with them here at the NAC. Mm-hmm. And in the dressing room, I got the chance to talk to the boys. And I asked them about being in Florida. Yeah. And I'm like, what's it like? You guys must be huge down there. And they're like, no, man. They're like, we didn't even sell out shows in Florida until we went over to Europe. Yeah. And we became famous in Europe. Yeah. And then we got accepted back in our home area.
That's and that's the thing, and I think that's kind of it's kind of like the sore spot and everything is just that. Yeah, it's like you gotta go somewhere else to blow you up, and then they claim you.
Yeah,
but then they'll be quick to not claim you at some point. It's like we're so
unless you flop.
Yeah, even if you flop or if like, does everybody love every single Bon Jovi album that ever came out? You like one better than the other,
correct,
or something like that. So like, it was Slippery when Wet comes out, or Appetite for Destruction from Guns N' Roses comes out, and you're like, yeah, and then the next one comes, and you're like, it's good, but then they start losing out instead of being like, yo, these guys are good, like, and instead of whatever, sorry, go ahead.
No, I hear what you're putting down though. Like, I think it's interesting that you and Cardi and all these guys, even Drake, that not only rep Toronto, put the lyrics about, not even just said T Dot or Toronto or whatever, but even went as far as some of the artists even went as far as to like come out with like the 6, and clothing and all this stuff around it. So I hear what you're saying.
Correct.
And I think that's big, and it made a massive difference in pop culture in the last 20 years, and helped definitely help put Toronto on the map more so than a lot of other genres, for sure. But I did also talk to Cardi, because he spoke on a panel at my music conference that I used to do in Toronto. And one of the stories that I got a chance for him to tell me was that, when he got helped to get Drake signed, that ended up happening in New York, to your point, right? That signing actually happened down in New York, but that's more of a politics thing.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Not necessarily, for people out there that want to say, oh, Drake's, doesn't rep their, I'm like, are you nuts?
No.
Like, come on, man.
He breathed and died. Canada, Toronto.
Of course.
And it has nothing to do with the artists. I think it has to do with the record execs, right?
Yeah.
Because the record execs are not, like, if you go to New York, you're gonna find somebody like DJ Khaled. You know what I mean? He will be the A&R. Right now, Cardi's what? He's at Virgin, right?
No, I think he's like VP A&R Def Jam.
At Def Jam, sorry about that. But what I'm trying to say is that they will bring in real, like, actual artists as the VPs or the marketing or the A&Rs, right? But in Canada, that wasn't the case. It was somebody's little brother, somebody's uncle that really had no understanding of the genre. You know what I mean? I remember Cardi was talking one time, and he was saying when he first blew up, when he first was coming out, they had no clue what kind of genre to put him in. They didn't know. They had him touring with Shaggy because they thought he was like a pop, but they had no clue. He had so many different styles. He was rapping, he was doing reggae.
Dude, they put him on Edge Fest.
You see what I'm saying? So they had no clue.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and he was good enough to control the crowd, but like at first, and this is when you're rock and you're hip hop. Like, like this is just when you started to realize, I kind of like that Public Enemy song, and they started crying. So around then, it's like, like he was like, well, it's just rap, hippity hop stuff for some people in the crowd. And Cardi's the only one. And there you have like Simple Plan and Billy Talent and all these different huge rock bands, and some, what do you call the ones where they like death metal? Goth metal or whatever it was called. And here comes Cardi, patois swinging. Cardi's like, boom, boom, boom. Like, what? But yeah, that's exactly to your point. They didn't know what to do with it.
They didn't know what to do with it. And instead of saying, instead of going to the inner city and say, help us, right? Because everything that's populated, everything that's popular starts from the inner city. Record execs from the US, they go to the hood, they go to the inner city, and whatever the 16-year-old kids are doing, that's the next dance move. Michael Jackson, the moonwalk, he didn't create that. He was driving into the inner city. He's seen a couple of kids doing the moonwalk, but he was able to look at it, and then he put it on stage and perfected it. He didn't create that, right? So if these execs knew what they were knew what they were doing, they would go to the inner city, see what's happening, see what's popping, and then find somebody in there that's the head, bring him in to the show. But what it is, when it comes down to ego, when it comes down to
that's a thing.
That's what it is, because a man's Achilles heel is his ego. A man's Achilles heel is his ego. For example, ego is always attached to masculinity. So meaning to say that if you want to disrespect a man, the first couple of words you want to call him is what? The bitch, the pu, you know what I mean? you want to disrespect him and destroy him, you demasculate him. So you call him everything, or you treat him as something outside of his masculinity. But in order for a man to still actually hold his masculinity and not fall, he would have to exercise humility, because if the more humbleness you have, is the only way you're able to counter that ego. And I think what happened was these execs were so high up, no one could talk to them.
Yep.
And they missed out, because we should not have record labels that like Shock should not be an A&R. You know what I mean? He should not be like a head of hip hop. Socrates, as talented as he is, he should not, he should be an executive right now. Quadro from Get a Concept, he should be running major labels right now. You know what I mean? So there's so many infinite. Like, this guy is a mastermind when it comes to like visionary, right?
Game. It would change the game. For
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah. Once they get that, the whole music industry is going to change.
Just to add on to one thing, it's like when you're talking about Canadian, I think because hip hop was so young, because it started in like the 70s, late 70s, and it was so young, so all the music was young, and the people were young at that point. So like in the early 90s, you would catch people being like, oh, EPMD, they used to be like, we don't do commercial music, and they even had the song crossover, we don't crossover.
It's crossover. Because
we never saw it. Like, we just all about the art, like you're saying. It's like, oh, that's, you can't repeat another, like, look at this, you can't say another person's rap back, and that was called biting.
Yeah.
A style.
Yeah.
Now T-Pain did something. Now the whole industry turned to auto-tune.
Yeah.
And that's actually Roger Troutman and probably someone before that.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And you couldn't do it. It's called biting. You can't bite someone's style, bite someone's. That was a thing. Now Drake or Tory Lanez, or if it was R. Kelly or the other guy that sang rap, even Ja Rule.
Yep.
That becomes a flex. Everybody rap. Remember, there's a time, and there's still some people like that still rap like Drake.
Yeah.
Tone and everything, flow and everything. And now they just use it as compliments. They'll be like, biting or what is it called? Something you do, or what other is a form of flattery, mimicking or copying or something like that. And sure it is if you're, because you're influenced by it. But it was just different. And with the way it was back then, it was always that Canadian stigmatism. And that's why the Bare Naked Ladies and other groups, even it started to change around like Avril Lavigne sort of a bit, because it would be like, oh, the girl from not Ottawa, but whatever that city is right around Ottawa. It's right up there. I forget.
She's from Kingston?
No, it's from, but it's where the city where the Senators play. Like, it's not necessarily in Ottawa. It's like Kanata or something out there. She's from somewhere in that area, and but then that was because, like, you had the Bare Naked Ladies, and then you had all these other bands that were starting to go big, and then they started to say, okay, Canadian band, and they started to bring it home. And the best thing and the biggest thing that the hip hop did coming from Canada was that we made it proud to be from where you're from.
Yeah.
Because if you were, that's why you hear the 6 and you hear the T.O. and stuff like that. And we did, and we said it. And at a point, like around like 97, 98, you catch people, and it's a small thing, but it's a noticeable thing. You'd go like downtown Toronto, you catch people wearing Yankee hats, Philadelphia Phillies hats, Pittsburgh hats, LA hats, all these different hats, anything. And then over time, you slowly switched.
Yes.
Everybody started wearing Blue Jay hats.
Jays, absolutely.
Camouflage hats, things that said
Even
Toronto.
people from the States started wearing Blue
Yeah,
Jays.
Blue Jays and everything.
Snoop Dogg did it on, was it David Letterman or
Snoop Dogg.
He had the Toronto Maple Leafs jersey on, and
People were wearing Vince Carter. I get Vince Carter was Vince Carter, but he was wearing an animated dinosaur jersey. Like the old retro throwback one that they have. Like it was cool, and it's cool now, but it was different at the time with all the Knicks logos and all the other different logos that were going on, and people were doing it. And that is where people started being like, you started making people get pride in their hometown.
Yeah.
It's like we weren't like, like I'd go into battles, and like battles we would go in where it's not like now where people have 2 months to practice. You go like into a battle where it's off the top of your head, and you're there, and people just going and ciphering, and then someone would go in and be like, yo, let my boy in, cause my boy from Boston's here, let him in, let him come around. And why would they say that? Because he's from Boston, he's American, he's better than the guys that are here from Canada. That was a stigma for a whole bunch of people. And that's why, I didn't know Brian Adams, but when hip hop came, everybody started saying, it's good for Canadian rap. It's good for Canadian. Always that little attachment to it. Mm-hmm. And it's good to see it change. Now it's not, it's good for that. It'll be like, yeah, he's good. And then the next thing is, where's he from? Oh, he's from the East and West End. Oh, he's from Saskatchewan, East Coast, West Coast. You know what I mean? And now it's there. It's not totally there, but it's a lot different. And that's where I think the pride comes in. And that's why a lot of artists have to get big over, or they used to have to get big over where before it would be embraced over here, because we hated, we don't know if we hated ourselves, but we didn't think we were as good as others.
Correct.
And that was the thing that held us back for so long. And now look at what's going on. There's artists coming up they have pages, Toronto rappers.
Yeah.
Canadian rappers.
A ton of them.
One hand, Rascals, me, Cardi, Socks, and before Chaos, Ghetto. The Infinite, maybe, but Infinite we kind of confused them with Ghetto back in the day. So there you go. That's a 5 on one hand. Yeah, now you need toes and a couple of toothpicks. Count them out. Well, maybe more than a couple, but they're all out there now. So that was the transition.
One of the things I was going to bring up, and we basically covered it, was, do you have to leave Canada or home, to become famous? And you guys basically kind of answered it in a way.
You got to be you've got to be mobile. You got to be able to get around. Technology. Like Dave Chappelle, he's a comedian. He lives in Ohio.
Yeah, but no, I don't think so. No, you just need to embrace where you're from. It doesn't matter where you're from. You just need to embrace it, because once you embrace where you're from, people look in and say, "Yo, okay, that spot must be huge, man. That spot is a hot spot, right?" It all depends on confidence, right? So if you could live in the smallest little town, but when the way you speak about that town, it's like, this is the greatest thing on earth. The whole world is gonna start, let me check out this small town. So it's really up to the individual to realize, you know what? No, this town is amazing because I'm here. You know what I mean? Opposed to back in the days where it's like, they made us feel as if, like, you're small, you're not big, and you need to go elsewhere. Forget that crap,
you mentioned
man.
It one time too. I think it was you, but somebody said it to me, and they were like, "Oh yeah, they'd be like, where are you from?" And like, "Oh, I'm from this crappy small town called whatever it was." And then someone said to me, "Why would you talk about your city like that?"
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's a small town, and it's 4 hours from everything, but that's your hometown. You grew up there. It's you. It's Little House on the Prairie, maybe, or something like that. But you go back there. It's what it is, and that is what it was.
Correct.
Like Toronto is not like New York. It's not like the States. Yeah. And now it's changed. Now I remember when Antonio Davis, who played for the Raptors, and back in the '90s, and he was worried about moving to play for Toronto. It's like, we got to learn a new national anthem, and I don't know what the school's like, and all this mumble and bumble and everything that's going on. Now, people want to come here.
Exactly.
Before, maybe I think it was this year's, or last year's, or maybe even the year before. The best dunk contest since the Jordan and Wilkins and all those guys left was the one with Vince Carter. Or no, the one in Toronto. Sorry, not the Vince Carter. The one in Toronto where the guy from Charlotte dunked over the mascot under his head.
Yeah, correct. The
guy from and that was in Toronto.
That was in Toronto.
It was the best one, and everybody, and then all that rap players that came up, they all want to come. Rudy Gay, who played for Toronto, he was saying, they wanted to trip back then. No, I want to trip me to Toronto. I don't want to go up there. It's cold, and there's it's not cold. Like, give me a break. It's like New York. we're a 45-minute flight from New York. We're not that.
And it's so weird because I never experienced that ever in my life. Because, for example, coming from Africa, right? Third world country, right? We don't got no food. We don't got no clothes. You know what I mean? We got nothing, but everybody's proud to be African. Same thing with India. Same thing with the Philippines. Everybody's proud to be where they're from. But then you come to a first world country where people are ashamed. So it's like, that was very confusing for me, right? So it's like, what? If I'm proud to be from a third world country, once I hit the first world country, I'm shouting it to the world, man. Like, I'm shouting it to the world. Right?
Eddie Murphy and Coming to America.
You see, that's exactly.
I love you already.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, and F you too.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I think that's the case. Like, we leave and the world embraces us, right? But then we come back and it's like, you're garbage, right? So that's why a lot of people felt like they had to leave, but that was all a trick, man.
That was all a trick.
It was all a trick.
That was all by design, man. I think it's one of those things where the more you guys talk about it, I realize that the positivity and the passion and the pride that you guys have, right? That's infectious, So I think that as it spreads, it's a good thing, and I think that's part of what the movement has done is spread that, right? Now in America and here, for a long time, part of how the system was designed, I think, is to kind of break people down to try to make them work harder to get up, that type of thing, right? So there's that kind of logic in the culture here, but it's not great, man. I mean, when I went to Europe, I saw like what you guys are talking about there, and in dance culture, because I produced dance music for years, and had a studio in Woodbridge, and me and my cousin, we were doing dance music. And when I went to, I got a chance to go over to Amsterdam Dance Event at ADE in Amsterdam. And I got a chance to meet a bunch of the guys and hang out. And, I got some perspectives from them that were totally different. They're like, I said, why is there so many Dutch DJs? Like, how, I don't understand how this is possible.
Okay.
And they're like, no, you don't understand, Ryan. Like here, we're not working against each other. Yeah. We're not hiding things from each other.
Yeah.
We're trying to work together. Like if you don't understand how I did that bass line, I'm going to bring you over in my studio. I'm going to show you how I did it. Right. Because, we're stronger together than we are apart. And that sings to what you guys are talking about with everything we just talked about. Yeah. So it's like, you're right. This is happening around the world, all over the place, in Europe, different countries in Europe and India, all over the place, that they're proud to be where they're from. They're proud to build the things that they do together, no matter where they go in the world. These people are just it's a passion and it's a strength, man, that they have
and
inside.
They'll die for that belief too. Yeah. They will go down to the death for that belief.
And the people that don't understand that are the ones that are missing out.
Yeah.
And I think and unfortunately, I think you're right. I think back in the day, especially, there's a lot of people in positions in the industry that didn't understand any of that.
Yeah.
And because they didn't see it coming, they couldn't do anything about it.
Yep.
And it just passed them by. And then you got all kinds of guys that ended up having to start their own labels and do their case in point.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know?
go.
So I seen it happen. So I hear you, man. And I think it's interesting. And so one of the other questions, and I'll combine it, is like with another one, but like, obviously we talked a little bit about politics in the industry back in the day. How is it now? Because I mean, you talk about Cardi being A&R and all that. Like, is it like for guys coming up, for guys and girls and whoever wants to get in the scene now, who are coming up? How is it now from that standpoint? From like not just politics, but just even how do you get into the scene?
Okay, well, how to get into the scene? I think nowadays it's like you just upload your music and buy some Google ads, YouTube ads, and get your spins up, buy some Spotify, and get a bunch of IG followers and all that stuff you could buy. But you know what? I don't even hate on that too much. Not even too much, really, to a degree, because you're just taking your marketing dollars and putting them somewhere else. Like if you were to take $100 and buy some whatever promo for Spotify or for your YouTube or something like that. Okay, that's your marketing. You're doing it, and depending, there's ones that get caught up with bots and ones that don't find real ones or whatever. You have to go and research who the ones are the real ones, but you're still spending. Mm-hmm. Whereas before, it's like I kind of lost my train of thought right there. I forgot what I was just about to say.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying, because back in the days, the music industry, like I'm saying, they tricked the artists. They were robbing the artists. They made it seem like you can make it just being one-dimensional and doing music. While they were making all the back ends. Yeah. They were making all the splits. They were making all the profits. They were making all the they owned all the publishing. They owned all the tours. They owned all the merchandise, right? And they never released that, right? They never released it to the artists, right? So the artists will get an advance, and the problem with that is that's the last check they're ever gonna get for the rest of their life, right? Because now they have to spend so many years trying to recoup, and the advance was so bad that it was impossible to recoup. For example, if they gave you, let's say, $100,000 advance money, right? So they give you that money. All of a sudden now, your record deal says you're going to get 15 points, and that was a huge deal. So 15 points off $100,000 is, that's about $15,000. So you have to pay back the $100,000 within your $15,000. You would have to do about 20 platinum albums back to back to back to recoup that money. That's never going to work. Right now, the advice I give to the younger generation is you become the record label yourself. Meaning to say that if you go right now, even if you have a show with 100 people, each one of them is willing to buy a hoodie for $50 each, right? What's 100 times 50? We're at $5,000 already, right? That's 5,000. Yeah, it's about $5,000. 100 is that's it is. Yeah. Sorry, my brain's going. I want to make sure, right?
You're right. Yeah.
We're already in the right place.
Yeah. We are already at $5,000 for a show with 100 people coming to your show buying one single hoodie. That's not even including, selling stuff like your CDs, selling stuff like posters, selling stuff like, advertising, selling stuff like everything, right? So one single show, you could walk away with $6,000-$7,000. Once you're making that kind of money and a record label comes to you and says, we're going to sign you and give you 15% of that, that $5,000, you're going to say, hell no. Right? You're going to tell them, hell no. I'm going to do a deal with you. Like the Master P deal. I think Master P did a 90-10 split because he already was the record label. So concentrate on branding. And that was what the labels were doing back then. That's how they monetized the money off for you. But right now, the same A&R person, the same person the record labels will outsource to shop your record to the radio station, it's the same guy you could hire for a fraction of the price. The same videographer, like for example, Little X, or all these other, music directors, the same guy the record label would hire to do your music video and charge you 10 times as much as whatever they pay them, you could hire them yourself, right? Yeah. So become the brand yourself. Do not be one-dimensional and just concentrate on just the music element of it, right? Think about music as a business card and concentrate on everything else around it, and then you see your career will take off. You could be in a city or an artist that nobody knows, but you're walking home with like $150,000 a year, just with less than 1,000 consistent followers. That's it. 1,000 people that are gonna come to your show, buy your merchandise, retweet whatever you want them to retweet. Concentrate on quality and producing super fans. A super fan is a person that loves who you are. You know what I mean? So you got a whole bunch of these dudes that buy fake bots. You know what I mean? Fake this and fake that. You're just killing your algorithm. You know what I mean? Like you're eliminating a real fan from noticing who you are. If you got 10 real fans that are willing to buy 5 of your hoodies, it's more than, trying to pretend you got 1 million followers. Yeah. So that doesn't make any sense.
It's fake. And as long as you're going to live in that fantasy land online,
correct,
then it's all great. The problem is when somebody actually wants you to fill a bar with people, then you're going to have a problem.
Absolutely.
And unless you can put butts in seats, it's going to continue to be a problem.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Nobody's going to give you any kind of great opportunity if you don't bring nothing to the table.
Zero.
That's the thing too. Is like the line that Jay-Z says there. Like when he says, I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. So I handle my business. Damn. You're a moving pop-up shop. Everywhere you go, you have everything, and like you are the product. I'm a walking product. Everywhere I go, he could tell you, like, just since I moved to St. Thomas, I live down the road from where the shop is. Every time I walk in, he's like, "Hey, what's up?" I was like, "Hey, I got like 5-6 honks today." So I just walk, "Hey, what up, Shocks? What up?" And winter with a hood on and everything.
Trying to hide. So Choclair, man.
And so it's
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool, and that's just what it is. It's just like that, man. And I love it, and that's part of it. Going back to what we were talking about before, is like looking at all of your situation, because you're a walking business, and that's how you have to conduct yourself and everything. When you're having a bad day, I always tell this to your fans, and I remember this happened to me once. not the bad day thing, but that the bad day is like you're having a bad day and somebody sees you for the first time, or probably the only time they're ever going to bump into you, and you're just having a bad. I get it. You have bad days. People have bad days. You don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want to look at anybody. And then if you take it out on like, hey, I'm your big enough. Get out of here. I don't want to. You know, some people say it's the worst thing is to meet your hero. Because if he's not, doesn't turn out to be exactly what you want, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to like him, but he's such an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like what it is. And so I try to tell these guys, it's like, if you're having a bad day, and then here's where it goes to my example. I was at a party or whatever, show, club, whatever I was doing. And this one guy is like, yo, what up, Shocks? What are you doing? Yo, let me get you a shot. You want a shot? Yeah. And we were leaving. You were leaving the place like back when I used to stay in the club till like 2 and not anymore, like 1:30, 12:30 even. But like, you know, so, and he was like, and I was like, oh man, I would love to, but things like, and then I remember this and then saw the face. He's like, oh brother, man, I don't think I'm ever going to see you like this ever again in this type of situation. I'm never going to be like 1 and 2 with you. I might see you on TV. Maybe I might see you walking down the road and whatever one day. And I was out of town too. So it wasn't like I was in Toronto where they could just possibly bump into me. I'd have to be there. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's go and do a shot. Because that's what it means. And that's like, you know, like you as a brand is like, when I look at people commenting on stuff that I do on social media, they'll be like, I met him over here, man. That was cool dude. Like, yo, he's solid dude. I ended up I did a wedding not too long ago, well, a couple years ago. And the guy told me, he said, Rubbin', one of my songs, he's like, Rubbin', that's me and my wife's song. And I was like, how? He's like, well, we were going to this bush party. He's giving me a long story. We were going to this bush party. I couldn't find it in the place. And she was there. And then all of a sudden I heard your song, Rubbin', playing in the middle of the woods, like just out wherever they were, in the middle of the woods. So that's where we knew where the bush party was. So we went there. That day was when I met my future wife. And she liked your song. I liked your song. And that's why we would like for you to perform at our wedding that song for us. You know, and then that's it. The other place, somebody came and brought out $100 bill and had me to sign it. And I'm thinking, you know, he's probably going to spend it. You know, one day he's short on cash. I got to break this 100. You know, and then whatever. Comes back 12 years, something later. Like, now you got to sign the other side.
Wow.
So I saw, and he had a laminated case, everything, took it out of the case, and I looked at it, I forgot what year it was, and I was like, you kept this? Of course. But, and for me, I don't know, like, shoot, man, I'm my last, I have to crack this, take a picture and give it to somebody else, buy my bread or something like that, you know, and I had it at one point. But like, that's the thing, and then that's how you grab that, because, you know, I may not have as many fans as Eminem, but the fans that I have are as core as Eminem's fans.
Yeah, man. No, that's huge. And I think that's, you know, to summarize what you guys are saying, like to invest, to get the superfan concept's a real thing. And I think that but I think it's one of those things where because of social media and because of this whole, and I got kind of roped into this too when I was building my music conference about, you know, I got to get like as many followers as I can on Facebook, you know, at that time. And I invested a pile of money in that. And then of course, you know, they changed the algorithm and then, you know, no one's seeing anything and it doesn't matter, you know? Correct. But the thing is that all the people, you know, like Scratch and all these guys that I, you know, hooked up with back in the day, all these people that supported me from like day one, you know, they were supporting me like 8, 9, 10 years in.
Absolutely.
In the conference. And so, you know, when you build, you know, a group, and the point of this is that when that group supports you, when the artists are supporting other artists, when the fans are supporting the artists, when that's all working the way it should, right? Then you get what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Like, for example, if I was going to share something and then attack Shocks, you know, the fan base that he has, all of a sudden, whatever I'm sharing goes to the moon, right? So that's what I'm saying in terms of, you know, artists working with each other, you know, and just to bring it back slightly for the younger generation, just concentrate on getting 100 fans. That's it. 100 fans, you know, you do a show, let's say $30 at the door, because mostly what happens is that if you want to hold your own show, let's say you want to charge $30 at the door. 100 fans, that's $3,000. They're going to give you the door. That's not including your merch money. That's not including advertising. That's not including sponsorship, right? So realistically, with 2 shows a month, right? Anywhere, it doesn't even matter. Any bar, you're in the Sunshine Club now. You know what I mean? Because you're bringing home $100,000 with 2 shows plus merchandise, cash. $100,000 cash equates to probably $130,000. You're a doctor now, right? Doing what you love. Now, if I have to, scale that a little bit lower, it's 50 fans, right? That's why all these bots and all these fake,
That's only making other people money.
It is. You're losing big time. You know what I mean? Just concentrate on just that small group. If you have about 50 people, you could go to any bar or any club and anybody's gonna, sign you. Anybody's gonna bring you in. If you could guarantee you're gonna bring 50 of your friends. It doesn't matter who it is. Anybody's gonna give you that show.
And the thing is too, is like with the bots and all that stuff for other people, it's like people could tell. Absolutely. Because you have 500,000 views, 1 million views on your thing and 4 comments and 20 likes. It doesn't add up.
You ain't fooling nobody.
You're not fooling anybody. And then when you go to do a show and nobody shows up, that's exactly what Malichi is saying. It's like, you can move with 50 people just liking you. Just be like I'm not saying that's what you settle for, right? But you move with 50 and you be like, I got a hoodie that's, like you said, like $50 cost me. I'm just throwing numbers that cost me $10 to make.
Yeah.
And all these guys always buy my stuff. I'm making $40 everything. You're making all this stuff. You have 50 people and you times by 4 and every $40 and all those guys. And you'll get more friends because what ends up happening, like with the jumbos that we're doing and everything like that, I'll go somewhere, like down into like Leamington. And they were asking me, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's Jumbo. It's, it's a line. Malichi, we do this line. It's called Jumbo or whatever. A lot of times I end up giving it to like somebody. Because they don't have it and there's no shops down there for them to get it. They have to either order it from online and get it shipped out there. So I give it, and then they go around in their school and they're like, oh yeah, what's that? Oh, it's Jumbo Choclair. Oh, I heard of him. Funny thing is that then all of a sudden some kids will be like, oh yeah, my mom's talking about him. Because they're older now, right? Like we're older, right? Yeah. Like your mom's got my record, right? Like what am I sure have that song?
I know your mom's.
I know your mom's. Something like and yeah, but then they'll see it, but then that bans because it'll be like I'll do shows and the parents will bring their kids.
Yeah.
And there's not like kids like they're 2 years old. They're like 19, 20, 22.
Right.
Yep.
Like my godson is, how old is he? 20. Yeah, like he's 20 and he comes to Socrates' son. He comes to our shows.
Yeah.
He'll be there and him looking all, what's the, not even millennial, what is it, Gen Z-ish? Yeah. Like all those style that they're doing right now. And I'm like, man, you were that. And when you were younger and everybody, wow, man, you grew up so. That's exactly me. I'm like, correct. Coda.
It went so fast.
It went so fast.
So fast.
But yeah, like back to that super fan story and everything like that. It's like they will spread your word.
Yeah.
They will like, it's almost like, hopefully I'm not being blasphemous. They'll spread your gospel. They'll go and be like, did you hear? And that's kind of how I started. Because when I started, I was just, like I said, it was Father Time. Socrates' record was the record. I was just the B-side. And I was listening to DJ X on 88.1. And at the same time, and somebody called in and said, that Father Time record is a really cool record. It's really, but you guys need to check out that B-side. And I remember, I would never forget. I wish I had my thing recorded and stuff like that. I hear it say, yeah, that's right. Let's check out this guy. And he butchered my name. He's like, this guy Choclair, because it's my very first record. Nobody even knew who I was. Let's check out Choclair here. Let's see what he got going on. And then they played the record and people were like, whoa. Whatever. So then me and Day at the time were like, oh, we should put a Choclair shirt and put Need Eat Records at the back. Yeah, actually funny. I was driving down Queen Street and I saw my old shirt from 1996. It was on somebody, so they probably got it from a thrift shop or something. But it didn't look like they were a Choclair fan. It just looked like they just had a shirt to put on, or they put the kid shirt on or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then that we did that, and it was just it was just that type of vibe. It was just so.
It's a real fan because, like you were saying, when I go to the schools, it's shocking because I go to the schools and I'm there speaking with the kids and I'm like, anybody ever heard of before I even say it? Saint T's. You got 500 little babies saying the name. And I was like, how'd you guys know? Oh, my dad said, he's your friend. You know what I mean? My brother's like this. My mom's like that. And I was like, wow. So you got the parents are the super fans. All of a sudden, the kids become the super fans. And those kids, their kids are going to become the super fans.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? So concentrate. And one thing I realized in life is that when somebody goes to a show, even though they love your music, they're not gonna buy your merch. They don't buy your merch because they love your music. They buy your merch because of you.
Yeah.
Your personality, who you are. You know what I mean? So a lot of times people concentrate on music, but they don't concentrate on who they are as a human being, right?
It's a big deal.
Huge.
It's a big deal. In
You know what I
fact,
mean?
probably even bigger than the music in some cases, because you can have incredible music, but if nobody likes you,
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
nobody's listening, man.
Exactly.
The only time they hear you is in the club.
That's it.
Like, that's the only time.
Nobody's
Yeah.
gonna take a hard work money and pay for something that you did if you're a jerk, right?
Yeah.
So we talked a bit of, we touched on like bots and followers and all that stuff. Back in the day, part of, I think, what was involved with and I'm actually coming up, I'm doing a thing in Toronto with Electric Circus, but we're doing a thing at Laval.
They brought it back, didn't they? Because I saw they
They
invited
did,
you
right?
up.
If you guys want to come to that, let me know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
wow.
it's but I was going to talk about music videos, like back in the day, music videos were a thing. And how did that sort of play with you guys? How did the music video thing play? And, because now it's really different. Like,
Correct.
my dad got into country music late in his musical career. And by the time he got into it, he's like, oh, we got to make a music video, but there was nowhere to play it.
Yeah.
Like even, Canadian country music television was like on its way down. It was almost done. And we still made a music video. And he says to this day, that was one of his most favorite things that he ever did was do this music video. And I thought it was awesome because I was a young guy and I am making this music video. And it was just a cool experience for me too. But music videos, back then versus now, like, is there still a relevance now to doing music videos? Way more now.
Yeah, because that's what I think. Because like you were saying, back then, we didn't even get like the satellite signal for BET unless you had one of them big ass satellite dishes in your backyard. My cousin had one. You could see it over the fence, like it looked like it cost the moon and back to have one of those. And but that was where you could get MTV. It's not like now everything is everywhere, right? And especially BET and stuff like that. And so you weren't going to see. You were lucky if you saw Much Music play Humpty Dance. Like you were lucky.
That's true, actually.
So you weren't really seeing it. And then in the States, they had this show, which was kind of like YouTube at the time, but it was on cable, and it was called like The Box. And they would play like the Black Moons and the Souls of Mischiefs and all these different underground hip hop artists. And I don't know how, because you could only get it in the States. It was called The Box, and that's what you would see all those videos on. Now, and then commercial radio, like mainstream radio or traditional radio, that was solid and was still in. So if no XFM, no Sirius, no anything like that. So you had to go there, here and there, and it was more about the music, because depending on your genre of music, if you weren't pop top 40 or whatever it was, the chances of you being seen that often was you either had to break through somehow, just hope somebody caught you on the C or D rotation. And just at that one time, right before the top of the hour, and they throw on whatever video to clog up the time. Oh, we got 3 minutes left. Throw on this Choclair video. 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Okay, yeah, throw it in there. To where now, that's a lot of people. They as soon as they hear the song, they're looking for the video. They're like, "There's not a video for this." Because now everything is visual, because the attention span's shorter. We were just talking about it. Like, you can't even have a song longer than 3 minutes and 3:30 was the time limit. Now you have to start fading out at 2:55.
Now Kid Capri's got it made.
He definitely got it made. He's 8 bars and there's the song.
Yeah.
So to catch people quick, it's like, get right to it. Visuals. What's happening? What's happening in the video? What's the people in Paris with Jay and Kanye.
Correct.
Flash. They have to put even disclaimers up for people who might have epilepsy.
Yeah.
Because of the way the lights flash.
Paparazzi, yeah.
But it's like, that's what got to get your attention, It's like, what does it say in the middle of the song? It's like, guerrilla music. What do you mean? It gets the people going. I forget that little pause when the music drops.
Yeah,
in now.
yeah.
And they use that skit from the movie there where he's whatever. Whoever's listening to it, you know what part movie I'm talking about with Will Ferrell or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it gets the people going. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
Visual, I believe, is way more now because the first thing, even when you go to find a song, you know, like when you went to, we were talking about like the Drake stuff and the Kendrick stuff, you know, the first place people are going, YouTube.
Okay. Because I think I know exactly what's happening, because when you were asking about the music video, you were actually talking about the 4-minute music video. But I think what you're talking about is actually just visuals, meaning to say that the music video, the 4-minute video is dead, but the visuals skyrocketed, meaning 30-second clips, 1-minute clips. That you definitely need, you know, TikTok, Reels. It has to be 1.5 minutes or lower, right? So that's not enough for actual music video, but you do need the visual of
trailers
a music
and stuff
video.
like that.
Correct. So whether it be somebody just sitting in their backyard, just rapping with their cell phone, you still need the visual. But for the music video, that's done. Nobody's doing that anymore. It's a waste of money. But visuals, you need as many visuals as possible, because once somebody watches one music video, they don't want to watch it no more. But with visuals, you could do a visual, 365 visuals, a new visual every single day. You have to do that to retain somebody's attention span, right?
Yeah.
But I would not spend, if you had $10,000, I would not spend one single penny of that on one music video. I'll you know, space it out into doing 30-minute or a minute clips of either by yourself, or if you want to do a little bit more professionally, but do it in a form where you have at least, you know, 6 months worth, opposed to one single music video. Because one single music video is equivalent to buying a CD, opposed to, you know, going on Spotify where you could stream continuously hundreds of thousands of times, opposed to, you know, one CD. So yeah, the music video is dead, but the visuals have gone to the moon.
Now, the one thing too, also just with that is with the video too, is like also it's also different too, right? Like, you know, we were talking about 2-inch tapes back then.
Yeah.
You know, I think if I remember correctly, one of my friends who work in the film industry was telling me like 10, maybe it's 100 feet, I don't know, but it wasn't that big, but it was so expensive film.
Yeah.
We used to, because he worked in the film industry, they used to call them, you know, like the
dad tapes.
Not the dad tapes, but you know, like, if you're filming a set, right, and you have 2 minutes left or 3 minutes left to film, but you have a 10-minute thing, they just chop the tape and they get rid of it, right? Or they try to do pickups, B-rolls and stuff.
Yep.
So we would use that stuff. Like, we were constantly changing tapes because we had like, okay, we have 2 minutes of tape here, 4, because tape was expensive. Like you say, 10,000, it's like 10 for the tape.
Yeah.
There's not even like the boom and the workers and this location and everything. Like Let's Ride was $180,000.
Wow.
And it looked like it was $1 million about that, but that's because in Canada, at that point anyways, it was way cheaper to do videos. Up here, which is why they call it Hollywood North. People come up here and shoot movies up, stuff like, because it's cheaper with tax credits, whatever else is going to do up here than it was in the States. So I could do a $180,000 video up here, make it look like Busta Rhymes and Janet Jackson, which was like, I think it was $2 million. I think she couldn't be in a video that was less than $2 million. That was just like Janet Jackson. She can't be in a video just like, you know, over, you know, like in front of the beer rail, you know.
And you're talking about trying to get 100K back, man.
Yeah,
try to get
It's
the
done.
2 million back.
You see what I'm saying, right? So
Yeah.
you would never, ever, ever recoup that money. It's pointless, right? It's pointless.
Crazy.
But then the deal of the great thing about that was that, and then also with everything, and I didn't know it at the time, but I do know it now, so I can tell everybody is that I ended up in all the deals, like Masters, sure, for Let's Ride, because they paid for the record and Ice Cold and everything. Everything since that, I just kept it everything. Everybody was getting publishing deals. Now, if you're ass broke and someone's offering you $100,000 so you can do stuff, do something, get yourself out of where you're at. Of course, you're going to take it. You got to do whatever because you don't have it. Yeah. But you don't realize what it is when years down the road. Like, I don't have to go and talk to a publishing company. Yeah. If somebody wants to use a song of mine anywhere. Like, I just did this thing with CBC and they wanted to use Made to Move Mountains. I just, okay, because it's mine.
He gets all the money.
I don't have to go and get Warner Chappell to go and be like, because Warner Chappell, if they have part of your publishing, because they own it, because they bought into it, they could just say to you, we kind of don't, you think it's something different.
They could also refuse the deal. You're right.
Or they could refuse it.
Yeah.
No one could refuse my deals.
Yeah.
Because all they have to do is I'm the one-stop shop. Like I said, it's like I'm the walking business, because I didn't know it at the time, and I was happy I know it. Is I didn't go and sign a publishing deal, so I own 100% of my publishing, and now I own 100% of my masters. And it's funny when I talk to people, they'll be like, "Oh, and so what publishing company?" I was like, "No, it's mine." What? How'd you do that? And I was like, "Well, I don't know, but I'm glad I did."
And there's a lot of people that through the pandemic sold their masters,
Absolutely.
right? A lot of people.
Absolutely.
And a lot more than I even thought. I started seeing the list. I was like, whoa. And a lot of that was to afford their places in LA or
That's it.
the lifestyle or whatever, right? When they had no gigs.
Yeah. And then that's a cool point that you're talking about right there. Is one thing that I noticed, and I know we're going like new artists compared to back in the day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing that I say, and then as we were just talking about keep your publishing and everything, always try to, as a musician or an artist, no matter what genre of music that you're doing, is when we were talking about like trends and stuff, or maybe it was me and you talking about it before, and then me and other artists we were talking about before, it's like, don't follow the trend. Like trends are cool. You know, like if you're doing stock trading, you follow trends. It's going up, okay, I'm going to buy, or I'll buy here and go up. Or if it's going down, I'm going to short here and short it down. But then you're always following. And then what I find that happens a lot is, we were joking about it with the auto tunes and T-Pain and everything like that. Once it's gone, it's gone. Yeah. And now you're always following. And now you recorded it like Let's Ride. I recorded 3 years before I released it. If I was following a trend, the trend would have changed. That song came out and be like, that's old.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. And then when you don't follow trends and you just do music, you're always going to get, like you're saying, you get the super fans that like you, like Chaos. People love Chaos. Some people didn't get Chaos when he first came out. They're like, what's this guy? Essence, he's riding a bike in Pickering. Like, what the hell? This is not gangster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was whatever. Chaos is doing his thing and he's there. And then the best part, the point I wanted to get to is catalog. And you see why all these record companies right now, they have with artists that are just, when we were talking about how easy it is now and how much work you had to put in before. Because you could put out a song, and I'm just not to discredit anybody. You put out Panda. Somebody jumped to the Panda. Soon as born in Atlanta. You know the song. I'm not. You know Panda, right?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah.
It's not even a catalog. It's not that requested song in the club.
Yeah.
It's not anywhere. And then what's happening is that the people don't have their catalogs. And if you really look at it in the industry, and again, as you as being in the business, why do you do Beatles play forever? You know, that's why Michael Jackson bought this catalog.
Yes.
Because they're always going to play Beatles. They're always going to play Michael Jackson. They're always going to play some song by Drake. They're always going to play some song by Jay-Z. Everyone. Yeah. Christina Aguilera. And then you have your catalog. And then Madonna catalog, you couldn't even imagine. It goes all the way in the 80s. Michael Jackson goes back into the 60s. And that's what's going to... And that's also another thing that you got to keep in mind. Because if you have one song, you got to hope that song just... You know, the little engine that could all the way through your last 60 years of life. You know what I mean? Yeah. And hope that just keeps generating that funds, because you don't have other things to go. Where if I go, you know, everybody knows Let's Ride, but then people come and be like, that Made to Move Mountains, that's my joint. Oh, Robin, that's my joint. Skylight, Flagrant, that one, that one. You create a catalog. And I kind of off topic a bit, but it was just like, create your music and everything, because that is actually one of the things that the record companies are really dealing with right now, is they don't have enough catalog. They have music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, started slowing down in the 90s, started slowing, because then now the music trend changed. Instead of putting together full-length albums, EPs, mixtapes, and mixtapes have other people's beats on it.
Singles.
And that's what the thing is right now. It's a singles market.
Yeah.
You know, it's like back when you used to buy 45s. You put out a single, a video, and then they said, then 2 weeks later, put another single in a video.
Correct.
And then maybe a year later, or at the end of the year, or end of a certain period of time, then you just put all those singles on a thing. I mean, here's everything together. Chaos just did it just now. The Collective is I forgot what the record was, one of his records, the one with the tree on it, I think it's called.
Correct, because if you own your masters, if you own your publishing, what it is that I don't even understand why these artists sold their publishing because of the pandemic.
Oh, because of the pandemic. Okay.
No, but they could have simply, like business wise, I would have. My catalog is worth, let's say, $100 million. I just take a loan out against my catalog. I still have my catalog. If my loan flops, I could still go bankrupt. I still got my catalog, right? Same thing. For example, if when you came out, everything was on vinyl. So all his publishing, all his masters are on vinyl. All of a sudden, CDs came out, right? All of a sudden now, the person that had the vinyl, he needs it on CD. You know,
they buy another copy.
They buy another CD copy, you know what I mean? And then CDs are gone, it goes into streaming, you know what I mean? So now they got to get a Spotify account, listening to the exact same songs. So they're getting paid, and it's going to keep on going and going and going and going. Once you give up your masters or your publishing, you give up your inheritance.
Yeah, all the residuals. Yeah,
everything.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
So that being said, one of the other things I told you earlier I wanted to bring up was, we talk about music videos and the relevance. What about the relevance of being in a real studio with your, with your sound and with recording? Like, because there's a lot of home recording. There's a lot of people, buying gear, doing it themselves and whatever. Is there still a relevance to going into a professional studio and doing a professional recording?
Absolutely. It's two different sounds. You know what I mean? When you're on, whatever, I don't know, whatever streaming platform, when people release music, there's a totally different sound when you're listening to a 16-year-old kid with a mix and a master, opposed to come into a place like, was it Music City, right?
Yeah, Charterhouse.
Charterhouse, right? It's totally different. Like we were just talking about it earlier today when we were talking about when you have a great a great engineer and a great mixer, and you're able to capture the essence of that song. I'm talking about if the song needs to be motivational, there's ways to master that song that a person actually feels motivated when they hear that song. Somebody doing it at home or trying this and trying that, unless you're, a superstar, a super genius, that's the only way you're going to do it. But at the same time, music started downgrading when people got away from bringing their sound to an actual studio. Yeah, real studio. Just look at this podcast. Look at this setup right now, right? Like I was telling him, like I was listening to all these million viewed podcasts, and I was listening to your podcast, and I was like, did you hear that guy's sound, man? Like that guy, the sound is amazing, right? The quality, it's beyond. It's one of those things where it's like there's certain steps that you cannot, just fluke. You can't cheap it. These guys have been doing this for 50 years, 20 years, 40 years. They know this. And if you want to get to that next level, you got to find a real studio, man. Stop recording that stuff in your own basement. It's not going to work.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, I've worn a lot of hats in this industry, and, whether it's live performance or studio recording or, writing or whatever part of the process, right? It's like you're up against, 1,800,000 gorillas.
Correct.
Right. And if you think that you can do it better without, the whole process and no, man, like, you gotta figure out, there's different ways to do it, but sometimes, you gotta have, the quality's got to be there, man.
It has to be there.
I mean, we're not in a studio in LA doing this podcast, but like you said, the quality is good. So yeah, there's a way to do it. Let's say in your hometown, but you still have to. It's the quality still has to be there.
Correct.
And that's why I keep the studio rolling. Is because, like, to me, it's part of the infrastructure that's needed if we're going to be a music city. Like we say, having a real studio is part of that infrastructure, right? Having a place that mentors people, having, places where you can do writing circles, having places to perform. These are all elements to honing your craft and getting to where you want to go. And like, sky's the limit, certainly, but, and then you can do all this content creation and all this stuff and, cool. But like, there's all kinds of pieces in the toolbox that if you don't have them, then, God forbid, maybe you do have to leave home for a second to go and check this thing out, somewhere else. So I'm always trying to, with the studio here, like, I'm always trying to find ways, like I was saying to you guys earlier, to, get more people in the studio, get more things happening here in town, because there's a lot of talent, not only just, in Canada, but even around here, man, in London. There's a lot of talented people around here.
It's a ton.
It's like, I think that it's a big deal, and I'm happy to continue to support it as much as I possibly can. Is there, in all the travels that you guys have had, is there like a favorite place that you guys have played?
Before we get to that, can I just jump in?
Yeah.
On the last one you were just saying?
Yeah, go for
just
it.
From the same perspective, or just to a different perspective of like home studios and studios. It's like,
Sure.
For me, it depends. Like when I was recording Ice Cold, I was in studios all the time. I was at either 306 downtown, or I was at Gadget Studio up at Trebas Studio, and we were always in the studio. And now with that, because of the way the structure, right? Like you have the engineer there. It's almost even like doing homework at home rather than doing it in school. You're in that structure of you're working, you're in class. Like if you're in the studio, you're here. Then you have, and then at that point too, you also have other people around, because like you may not want everybody up in your house. So by year you can have like 5 people. You go, and we used to do power sessions from 6 evening to 6 to 6. 12 hours straight, and people would come and go and show up later or whatever. And sometimes that's motivational and it's good, kind of hypes you up, gets you from just being in one spot. But then also at the same time, like I did Let's Ride in the home studio where like an 8-inch reel to reel with a quarter-inch 8-track reel to reel, and the pulling reel was slow, so you had to put your finger in it to keep the speed up so it wouldn't jack up, right? And it was the mic was in the closet, the back thing was a whole bunch of pants and everything. But when we did it, it was the instant thing, and having that available to be like, I got an idea, we'll turn it on. You go there. You can call here, but you're not here. The person's not available. You have to do it tomorrow. We were talking about it, like, then you get there, then
this is the magic you were talking about. There's just boom.
Yeah, because then you go, and then now it's a half hour, 45-minute drive. Whatever. If, your vibes lose, or I don't know, you might get even more. It gets down. Whereas like you just go up and turn on your thing and walk into the booth or wherever you're going to record. Some people just record right in the same room. They just be quiet and turn off TV, just whatever. Yeah. But then you can. And so I'm just talking about the experience, but you can take some of that stuff and bring it, but then you should bring it to a studio, because number one, you get the sound and the acoustics, and then you have the professionalism of people who've been doing it for 20, 40 years or something like that can help you.
Take it to another level.
Take it to another. If you're just doing that, you don't have the acoustics as good as you think you are. If your place is not set up for it, it's not, because you're going to have sound bouncing all over the place. So I'm kind of a favor of both, but I think you should take it somewhere to do it. Like you get you buy a new pair of shoes, what you do? You put the coating on it, and someone built it, you put it so your shoes don't get whatever. You make a good song, you take it somewhere, because all you have to do is take your stems.
Correct.
And then bring it somewhere else. And the vibe that you got in your home studio, just because you were able to get up, you're in the mood, you're in the motion, and you did it, and you did your take, and it might come out good, but sometimes it might be better with other people around, because the one thing that I would say, and that's why I said earlier, I said just being on stage is the fun, because you sit there and you recite to people and you see people recite your words back. Sometimes I'm doing shows, I just stand there with the mic and they sing the song for me. I'm like, thank you. I'm drinking my beer. And it's the chorus. Okay, yeah, everybody. Because that's the fun, because I enjoy being on stage. I like watching people be entertained by the music that I provide them. In the studio, with my friend G-Vine, he has the booth so damn hot. And it, it's closed. There's no windows, there's no air because of the sound and everything. It's just a room and closed off. It's quiet as hell. And you're in there and you get hot and you feel like you did your great take. You're like, okay, this is my third one or my first one. I did it. I nailed it. And then the guy's going to be like, and that's what you're paying for, right? As you're like, nah, got to do it again. I'll keep that one, but let's try it again. And then you're in there for like 10 takes. 15 takes, and stuff. I come out there, you're in an undershirt, everything, and then that was the thing.
Got to get the performance.
Yeah, because then but he's like, because you want to get it right so you don't have to stay in that heat so long.
Yeah.
So you stay in there and you record. Like, so you go in there, you don't have to read, you want to have it memorized, but sometimes you have to read. But you go in there, you know how you're flowing it, you get your air, you understand what your breath control is, and then you get in there and you do it. And you probably have 2 or 3 takes. If you're lucky, you get them in one. People do get them in one. And you do 2 or 3, and then you're out. But that's the work, because if you don't get it and somebody's there that's supposed to be getting your best interest and you trust them, and they're like, man, okay, you're not hitting that T right. Yeah. You're like, who cares about the T? Just go and turn up the 5K and make it snap. Or 15K, whatever the frequency is, and make it snap. And they're like, you could do it, man. I know, just get that. And that's the work. And then that's why you don't get out till 6 a.m. You start at 6 because you have to do all that work, then you're arranging and all this other stuff. So that's when you get into a studio with other people around, and you get into an atmosphere where you're like, I'm in a studio, I'm working, I'm doing this, where is great. Whereas when you're at home and you just have an idea, you could just lay it down. So there's good to both. There's good to both to be able to do it. But at the end of the day, once you want the polish and you want your shoes to stay great for a long time, studios where you take it. You take it to an engineer, mastering and mixing, and you get it done.
Yeah, I think people stop at the pre-production. They assume that the home studio is a pre-production, and then you bring it to the big dog after. People stop at the home studio and it's like, yeah, I made it. And a lot of the times that's why the music doesn't go anywhere. They can't play it on radio. They can't, nobody that likes that song, he can't use it in a movie for sync because it's not even engineered properly, right?
Yeah, not mastered at all.
Yeah, and then that's the thing is like the thing with the big studios too is like, like someone, unless they can just do it, the gear that you need, it's not cheap. I remember Gadget telling me, I don't know if I'm sure they still sell them, but when he was telling me how much like a SSL board was, one of them big ass boards.
Yeah, they still make them.
They still make, and they're like from that wall to that wall. And it's like, you can't have that in your house. But for certain things, especially if you have a lot of tracks, like, live bands and orchestras and stuff like that, you need those tracks, you need those plugins, you need all these different things. Yeah. You need it. So just go and get it done.
The old ones, you need massive air conditioning just to keep the place cool,
the
man.
Heat, man.
Those things were hot.
Didn't Ray say we something about 93 tracks to mix or something? I think it was on Still DRE, and he's like, I had to mix 93 tracks. 93 tracks. Gadget used to get mad if we had more than 40.
That's crazy.
And that wasn't too often, but a couple of bongo drums here and a hi-hat there, stereoed, and your tracks go up, right? But you don't have that many tracks in your house, so yeah.
So performing live, like you said, you love performing live. Is there a favorite place or gig or that you've played?
Never a favorite. Like there's a place I like to go because
places you like to go.
Yeah, like I like going to Vancouver. I like going to like New York and Winnipeg and just city. We like definitely where like your sales are better in certain cities and other like. Maybe maybe Edmonton is not as big as Calgary. Edmonton's still good, but you still have a great show in Edmonton. But because more people absorb you in Calgary, it's going to be even better. But there's not like one city that that I could say, oh, I can't wait to go back here or there, because I like to go everywhere. And the best part about it is that. Number one is just doing the live shows I really enjoy. But then it's also the people and the people that I meet. It's like people will hit me up on social media and be like, hey, I heard you coming here. Or I'll put up like an old picture. Like, I'll be like, hey, let me just bring this back, Throwback Thursdays or something. And it'll be like Vancouver. And all of a sudden my phone starts ringing off when were you in Vancouver? You didn't call? What? And I was like, no, that's an old picture. You were there at that show, guy. That was last year or something like that. And, but yeah, man, that's just cool stuff. It's just it's really cool. I really like it. I really enjoy it. I really do. Yeah, I like it's not necessarily the cities, because any city. I've done shows that were crappy with 1,000, if not more people there, just because the audience, for whatever reason, they'll cheer, but they don't move during the songs going. No type of interaction. But sometimes that's just wherever you go. It's just kind of like their mood. Like I went to Nelson, BC, and I remember we were on the tour bus. We parked somewhere, so anybody from Nelson, BC, if you remember where that waterfall is that goes down and whatever, we're looking out the bus window. There's kids breakdancing on cardboard, which is fine, but there's no music. They're just to the sound of the waterfall.
Wow.
So I was on the road with Rozelle from The Roots at the time.
Yes.
So Rozelle goes out open up the window, he just goes out the window,
of course.
give him a beat. they're just rocking, and they came over and whatever, said what's up, what's up. You know, so they're things have quirkiness here, quirkiness there, but like it was all good. And then the show came up, and then Nelson, BC is like not really that big, so you don't really get like 5,000 people at a show. You get a show that has a capacity of maybe like 150, 200 people.
Sure.
And smaller room, so it's packed. But then I go to Sudbury and I do the arena.
Yeah.
And that's packed. And sometimes the small place is good. Sometimes a big venue is good. So it's really hard. It's like asking me to pick my favorite song.
Well, no, because it doesn't matter. Like whether you're at a 150 person show, in that small town in BC, or you're in an arena in Sudbury, they're all fans.
Yeah,
and
fans.
they all love you the same. You know what I mean?
So it's just hard to pick. I love it all. I'll just say that. I just love it all. I love the experience. I love the travel, and I travel so much. But I don't know. I even love the fact that I don't even get a lot of sleep, because then when I get back home off the road, and I have an excuse to just don't. I get off the road. Don't bother me for 2 weeks. Don't call me. Don't bother me. Don't do
so
anything.
now you guys are in St. Thomas.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did that happen?
He was there first.
Well, I was there first, right? Actually, I was on tour and I got lost, right? Ended up at St. Thomas, right? So I never heard of St. Thomas before. And so
That's a little ways off the 401, man.
It is. It definitely is.
Got really lost.
Yeah. It really is. I was supposed to make a right.
Meant to happen, though.
Yeah, I was supposed to make a right on Highbury to go to London. I made a left on Highbury to go to St. Thomas. But since I never heard of St. Thomas before, I'm assuming St. Thomas was London, right? So I'm looking around. Some dude hops on the bus and he was like, yo, you guys are lost. Like first thing, right? He didn't even ask us anything. He just told us we're lost, right? I said, how'd you know? Dude's like, I know. I know.
Because we're heading in the wrong direction. That's why.
That's
the first thing.
It's very clear he knew, right? So anyways, he told us, it's on the opposite side of town where we were supposed to be, right? But by that time, I was driving around St. Thomas. We're in Toronto at that time, right? So I'm looking around. It's like no traffic. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Kids are playing.
That'd be culture shock.
You know what I mean? I'm seeing all these things. Everybody's saying hi to me, right? Like, I'm like, what the heck? What's going on here, right? Nobody talks to you. Just
In Toronto, it's not so friendly all the time.
No, it's not like that, right? So if they're talking to you and smiling up, it's a setup, right? So for the longest time, I'm thinking I've never experienced this, right? Until when I got home, back to Toronto, and I'm like, I Googled it. And then I'm thinking right now, I'm like, you know what? I'm seeing the housing market at that time, right? The housing market was like you could buy like a house, brand new house, like brand new from scratch, build it for like $300,000. Older house or like 180. And I'm like, this must be crack homes, right? I'm serious, because that's the only way you get that kind of homes in Toronto.
If you're lucky.
I said the crack homes, but then I'm looking at. Every house is the same price. I was like, the whole city is crack homes, right? So what's going on here, right?
Cracked out.
I was so confused. I've never seen this in my life, right? Until I realized, oh my goodness. I'm looking inside. I said, no, this is a beautiful home. That's a beautiful home. That's a beautiful home. And it was 5 seconds. I make a decision in 5 seconds. I'm out. I'm selling my house. I'm gone. I don't care what I'm going to do. I'm gone. Because I've always been an entrepreneur, so it doesn't matter where I go. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I'm going to make things happen, right? So I get to St. Thomas. And once I get to St. Thomas, now what happened was first thing I realized is the same issue we had 20 years before, where Torontonians were ashamed to be from Toronto because everybody else shamed us. Everybody else said New York's the best and we suck, right? That's the same experience that I had when I got to Toronto, right?
St. Thomas.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the same experience that I got when I got to Toronto. Everybody was ashamed.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, everybody was ashamed to be from St. Thomas. And I was like, no, this can't work, man. So I got to figure out a way to let these people know what we knew. Yep. You know what I mean? We believed in Toronto. We got to believe in St. Thomas. So that's when I think I was recording my last album, and the last song I wrote was St. Thomas Proud, right? And I did the music video, put it out, and it took off like crazy. People from St. Thomas like, hold on, who's this guy like rapping about St. Thomas and actually proud to be from St. Thomas, and everybody's like embarrassed to be from St. Thomas, right? So Now, after a while, now I said to myself, "Okay, shoot, I'm here. Where's the subway? You know what I mean? You know, where is it? I don't see none of this, right?" So I'm like, "Shoot, okay, what should I do now?" Because St. Thomas is untapped. So I'm talking around to people, and people are like, "You know what? You know what you should do? You know, the only way you can make a change here is you got to get into politics." I was like, "Politics?" I said, "Politics." I said, "Okay, good. I'm gonna run for mayor." So I ran for mayor, right? And as I'm running for mayor, at this time, Joe Preston was running, Steve Wiki was running, Heather Jackson was running, and I didn't know anything about politics at that particular time, but one thing I did know, I love my city, right? I love that city, and I was willing to die for the city because I'm in that city. So I'm gonna give my whole heart to the city. So I started running, started telling people exactly what I would do for the city, and I was shocked, man. People started voting for me. That was crazy. I was like, I can't believe this, right? And I was like, you know what? These people are actually believing and seeing what I'm seeing. You know how we had to go to New York in order to get love? I think sometimes someone from the outside had to show you love for you to realize that you're somebody, right? And that's how I felt for the city. And then at the same time now, I also realized when it comes to changing a stigma of an area or a city, you have to rebrand the city. Rebrand the city, and that's what I did. I opened up. That's where the Jumbo came into play.
Yeah,
the clothing brand Jumbo and the Saint T line, right? Too, right?
Right. Yeah,
So,
yeah. The Saint T.
yeah.
There it is.
And the way the Jumbo came into play was I was born in Africa. I was born in East Africa, and in East Africa, the most famous animal in the world was Jumbo, right? So I grew up knowing Jumbo. Like that's all we knew in East Africa, right? I get to St. Thomas.
I'm laughing because I know the story.
Yeah. Coincidentally, it happens to be the city that famous animal that we look up to died. And I was like, what
To
the
kill her.
Yep. I knew this story. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I said to myself, we're gonna start the clothing brand Jumbo. I started Saint T first, but I also said I need reinforcements too because it's like the city needs somebody that has done amazing things. I knew Shocks, and I said, Shocks, man, can you help me build this brand with Jumbo? Shocks like jumped in and said, let's do this, man. Ride and dive, Jumbo took off, man. It's everywhere, man. Like China, New York, anywhere you could possibly see them, selling these hoodies. But the thing about the Saint T line, right? It started off with one single barbershop. It became a lot, multiple stores. But that one single shop, remember I was telling a couple of kids when I was doing the public speaking in the schools, I said it cost me $20 to start the first shop, right? And what I did was, the landlord was a cool guy, and he actually believed in me at that particular time. That particular establishment, that area, that shop, nobody rented it. It was empty for like 10 years. He said, I'm gonna give you 2 months free, no money, you don't have to pay nothing, right? And I said, amazing. So I jump in, and then I took $20. I bought t-shirts that said Saint T. I made t-shirts that said Saint T, and I had one on, and I had one in the window. And people coming in for a haircut with a grand opening, they're like, yo, is that for sale? I'm like, it wasn't, but now it is, right?
Yeah.
So I sold the t-shirt, right? So that was $20. I bought 2 more, and then I bought 4 more. I bought 8 more until I bought thousands, tens of thousands or more. And that's how the thing took off. And it took off because people believed in what I seen in them. What I seen in the city. They believed in their city. People will... If you give somebody, it's like if you inspire somebody to believe in who they are, right? That person would die for you. You know what I mean? That person would die for the city. And a lot of times, individuals don't realize sometimes why gang members are willing to actually do 10 years for another gang member, or willing to take another life for another gang member, take away the violence and the messed up element of it. But if you actually look at why would somebody be willing to do 10 years in jail for somebody else, it's because they believe in that person. That person is a ride and die person. And if you're able to stand up for your city, and able to you know to love your city to that point, it's contagious. Like you were saying before, it becomes contagious because at the end of the day, this city is amazing because you're here. You know what I mean? So if somebody's like, this city's garbage, how can you say this city's garbage without saying I live here, so I'm garbage too? You know, that you see how the mentality, you know what I mean? And I seen that in London, and you know, in London as well too. And then after a while, there was, you know, several amazing, like you're saying, several amazing musicians coming out of London, and people started saying, yo, I'm from the, you know, I'm from Forest City. I'm from London.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Same thing. I'm from the 6th. That's what I'm talking about. And I remember the first group, it was like 94. It's got a concept. They had a song called
Certified?
No, not Certified. The one after Certified, it was Much Love. Right?
Much Love, yeah.
And in Much Love, the beginning of the song said T.O. And I was like, what? That's the first time I ever heard T.O. And I believe that's the first time on radio, on mic, anybody ever said T.O. It's Infinite. When Infinite was a part of Get a Concept. And I was like, these guys are repping Toronto.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I took that and I said, you know what? Anywhere I go, I'm going to rep wherever I'm at. You know what I mean? And then we just kept on, you know, catapulting that. We did the same thing in Elmer. We did the same thing in Rodney. We kept on going. And every single city, every single small city always had the same issue. Nobody believed in them. And I realized if we believe in them, it's just a matter of time where they start believing in themselves and then move on to the next place.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Yeah. Good on you, man. That's incredible. That's incredible. And it's much needed everywhere in the world for that matter.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. It's like the one love concept, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's almost even like that because even when that's how kind of I got down here is because, yeah, we connected and we wanted to go and push this Jumbo brand. And I do a lot of also, like I have a song called Made to Move Mountains and I have a outreach in Leamington. It's called Made to Move Mountains Outreach, where we deal with, we help people who are homeless and addictions and mental health issues and stuff like that. And we did that. And I was in Scarborough at the time. Actually, I was in Brockville, way by Cornwall.
Wow.
And then I kept having to go to Leamington, and then I was going back and forth, and then I moved from Brockville, and I'm back from Brockville. I was only there for like a year, and then I moved back into Toronto, and then this was my in-between. Because it's 2 hours to Toronto and 2 hours or just under 2 hours to Leamington, and I do my things out there, but I have to keep going back to Toronto. So I just kind of here, and then Malichi was here, and the shop was here, and then he was doing the Saint T's and the thing, and I was helping with the Jumbo, and I just like the fact that that's what he was doing, and how he was talking about it was like, yeah, you instill pride into people, and they'll go and get the pride, they'll return it back, or they'll feel it, because like sometimes, you know, like when somebody tells you don't worry, you can do it, and you hit the last 1 second basket at the end of the game, you know, because you believed in yourself that you could do it, or else you would have passed the ball off, afraid that you couldn't make the shot, or felt bad if you missed it or something. You believed in yourself and you did it, and someone made you believe that, and that was it. And I tell Malichi sometimes, I'll be like, you know, like you got Saint T's and we got Jumbo, and then it's kind of like a little thing because Saint T's is representing Saint T. Anybody, you know, like I have the yellow Saint T. I have mostly Jumbo is what I have some Saint T.
Okay. Yeah.
But whenever I wear my Saint T, everybody always knows. But then now people started to realize that I live out there now too. So, and I'm pretty much almost everything I have is a Jumbo. Like I have a couple here or there, but anything I put on, I'm walking, it's always a Jumbo. And they see that now. And then they see me wearing it, and they see me, like pretty much any picture you go on my Instagrams and everything like that is like pretty much that's what I'm wearing. I actually was wearing a Nike shirt, and I went upstairs to change because I was like, I don't put on a Jumbo. I was wearing exactly this, but it was red and blue, same type of everything. Yeah. It was just Nike, and I was like, yeah, I got to go upstairs to change, put on my Jumbo. And I went upstairs, and I got this one on. And everybody sees me doing it. Even when I do interviews with police, I'm like, yeah, I see you with that elephant thing. And then I'm come to find out, people love elephants like that. Yeah. You know, I like, oh, I love elephants. And people would be like, oh, here's my elephant. And then they send me pictures of their elephant umbrella, their elephant mug, their elephant whatever they trinkets and all the stuff that they put up there. Yeah. And then it's cool. And I used to see it like, we have this kind of logo, not logo, whatever you call it. We're like, yeah, Saint T, local, Jumbo, global. because like if you go to Vancouver, possibly people want to wear a Vancouver shirt, but they'll wear a Jumbo shirt.
Yeah.
In St. Thomas, they'll wear a Saint T-shirt and a Jumbo shirt, and then you have, I always want to say Reynolds.
Where?
The city, it starts with an R. Where the other Saint T is.
Rodney.
I always want to say Reynolds for some reason, but you'll put a Rodney's shirt. Yeah. That would still be Saint T's, that's company, but it would be like a Rodney shirt.
Yeah.
And then Elmer, I think
Elmer, like each city we go into, we make them their own brand. So we give them their own identity. So it's still called Saint T, but we give them, if it's Elmer, they have an Elmer, clothing line.
Yeah.
If it's, Rodney, they got a Rodney clothing line and stuff like that. So
that's
you build the people's spirits up in those cities, and they feel proud. They'll be like, yeah, I'm from a small town called Rodney, but gotta come out. We know how to party. Yeah. And all you get is the F-150s coming out and the Jaeger bombs, and all of a sudden it's just a crazy night.
Like he was on the Juno Awards, man. Like 2 million people watching, wearing Jumbo, right? Main stage, right?
I saw
Prime
it.
time, right?
I saw it. Yeah.
So it's like, how can you not love your city, man? Now he's on. The
and then actually, the funny
Canada.
thing was when he showed me the Jumbo, I just thought it was okay, because at one point Drake was doing the owl with the OVO, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, animals are and so, but then I went and I was like, but I wonder what this elephant's about, because I didn't even know about St. Thomas either.
Yeah.
So you Google it, and then I look, and then there's that big statue of the Jumbo. So I'm reading, because I want to read. And I was like, they killed that. And then when I went to, I came down to St. Thomas, and then I saw the statue, and I was standing at the bottom, and I'm trying to put my hand. I can't even touch the bottom of its ear. I didn't realize it was that. I knew elephants are big, but huge. Not like that.
That's actually a life-size statue of it.
And
too, right?
I was like, wow. And that's why I was like, what was the story? Is the locomotive or something like that? I don't know. I hear two stories, but the locomotive is kind of the one I normally, I don't know. But
they're probably going to shoot me if I tell the real story.
So. Oh, okay. We'll save that one for the Inquirer or something
Jumbo,
like that.
We love Jumbo.
Yeah. But it was just, I saw that and I thought it was cool. I thought the whole concept and then the design and then so Saint T was running, and then Jumbo came in, and then I moved in, and then I think it was the first year that I moved in, and they did a news report that I was in there, one of the newspapers, either the first or second year, but it was pretty recent when I got in, started getting on, and my neighbors started knowing who I was, and like, oh my God, they just show up at my house, knocking on the door, on FaceTime.
Correct.
I told you he was my neighbor.
It was funny.
Because
Because I remember Shocks moved to St. Thomas. Like, yo, Shocks, you got to come, money. So the minute he gets here, CBC calls us up. We got to do a story on you guys, man. And I think the title was why two Toronto rappers moved to St. Thomas, right? So it's pretty interesting. So Shocks is here, and they're reading it. The city's reading it, and everybody's like, Shocks doesn't live here, man. Why would Shocks move here, man? Come on, man. And it's going back and forth. The thread is going back. Yeah, I seen him. You're lying, man. I seen him, man. Listen, you swore to your mom you seen him. Why would you do something like that, man? It was hilarious because it was like people did not understand why somebody moving, because people in St. Thomas at that particular time, they wanted to move to the bigger cities.
Yeah, they thought Toronto was better.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And we're like, no, this is where it's happening, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't know. Once again, it's that trick. It's that trick, right? So London, no, that's where it's happening. You know what I mean? So it's like,
it's like the grass is greener thing, right?
Correct.
Meanwhile, in Toronto, you can barely find grass.
You see what I'm saying?
There's this very cool saying. It says like, okay, I forgot what I got it from. When you guys hear, you probably may remember where it was, where they had like the bull cow was looking over on the other side and thought that the grass was greener.
Yeah.
Saw a whole bunch of female cows up over there. I was like, I got a lot of grass here. But look, there's a lot of grass over there, and there's female cows over there. I'm going to go over there.
Uh-huh.
Leaves his pasture, hops over there, finds out that all the cows are bulls. And it wasn't greener grass over there. So like, like that.
I know where this guy's ever going to go with his stories, man.
So it wasn't greener over there. It looked greener. So, but then when you come in and you start building on the land that you have, then you're like, oh, this land is fertile. I could do stuff over here. And that's exactly with St. Thomas and all the other cities and everything. It's like, no, you have great stuff here. We just need you to realize it. And then you'll see. And then now, on the 17th of May at the Rail Station Museum, like they're like, yeah, come and do it. It's this big thing.
Oh yeah, I seen that. I seen that posted. So what does the future look like for you guys right now at this point, and sort of segue to what do you think the future of music is as you see it right now?
Okay, the same thing. The future for us is the same future for music. We're just building brands. You know what I mean? We're helping building entrepreneurs. We're helping building individuals. But the key thing right now is we're concentrating on the city. You know what I mean? If we're able to take, instead of trying to help individuals one-on-one, if you build the whole city, everybody comes. You know what I mean? So we're trying to put the city on the map. We're trying to actually make venues in the city where it's like people could come. Like you were saying, people need venues for people to play. People need, venues for opportunities, so they don't think that they have to leave the city in order to actually become somebody. So right now we're concentrating on a bunch, like a ton of business TV shows, podcasts, sync licensing, storefront shops. Like we're doing it all. And for the music element, we're trying to educate individuals into understanding that in order for you to make it in music, you have to become the brand. Period. Right. You have to become the brand. Like I said, the brand could be 50 people. That's enough to sustain you, every single year, opposed to you go working at, minimum wage job. That's enough to sustain you. So become the brand. We could show you how to become that brand if you wanna, if you don't know. It's actually a very simple thing. So yeah.
How do one of the questions I had, and we touched on it a bunch of different ways, but people that are coming up, whether they're building their own brand or they got someone like you helping them do it, other than building that super fan following, is there any other advice that you can give people that are coming up on how to take what they're doing to another level? Because there's also people that are like already kind of in the scene, you know what I mean? But sometimes they hit like this ceiling and they feel like, I'm trying to go from here to here. But, is there any advice that you have for any of those kind of people as well?
Correct. You have to venture into, it's like a branch. I think Shock said it before. It's like, right here's the middle is your music and you. Now, there's about 20 different branches. If everybody knows me, I got about 20 different businesses. If one is flopping, one is doing good. Like for just that one single store right now in St. Thomas, it's a clothing store, it's a sneaker store, it's a music studio, it's a podcast, it's a barbershop. Like it's impossible for that to fail because all of them have to fail one time. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of times people are tunnel vision. I remember before I opened up the shop, when I was doing the business plan, I remember they were telling me this is never gonna work because who the heck has like clothing store inside a barbershop? That doesn't make any sense. Who's selling sneakers in barbershop? Who's doing music in a barber? Like it doesn't make any sense. You have to stick to one vision. That system works 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. That system doesn't work. Like I come here, you guys have a podcast right here. Then you guys have downstairs, you have a music studio, right? Yeah. And then you're teaching music lessons, I believe.
You got selling drums, guitars, DJ gear, production.
That's the only way to make it in this world. You know what I mean? What you have to do is figure out the gifts you have within that realm. A musician is not just a musician. A musician is an artist. Usually, that's why most musicians could cut hair. Most musicians could draw. Most musicians are extremely fashionable, right? Because it's an element where they could branch off in so many different things. Don't just concentrate on one thing. Concentrate on every little thing. And if you concentrate on all these things, what will happen? Something has to blow up. Something has to bust. Something has to bust. If you look at anybody doing it right now, if 50 Cent was stuck doing music, he'll be out right now. You know what I mean? He kept on going. Dr. Dre, once again, Beats by Dre. Like every single person that's still relevant in music right now that started 20 years ago or 30 years ago has branched off in so many different areas. Snoop is a perfect example. Dude has a cooking show. You know what I mean? He has a book. He has a sports show. He's a football coach.
Football league.
Football league. I
didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. He has the league. He has the whole league. And the thing with him too is a lot of the people who came out of Snoop Dogg's football league are playing in the NFL right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I heard about that too.
They got like, there's a movie. It's all right. It's a cool movie, but it's about, I forget what it's about, but it's a Snoop Dogg movie. It's based off of how he started his football camp in Long Beach. It's comedy. It's, you know, it's kind of what you expect from Snoop with the comedy and everything like that. But it's actually based off of what he actually did. And then at the end, they show the pictures of, this was one of our kids that started with us. And this is them at the draft, the NFL draft.
Yeah. Wow.
And there's lots of people that do it. And then that's the key. And then that goes back to everything, like with the Snoop and the Dre's and everything and the 50s and everything that everybody's doing is, number one is to always just be who you are. You know, like we said, you don't want to copy a trend. Like you could use a trend to figure out certain things of what's going on, but you use it as a guide. Don't use it as this is what I have to do, because again, like I said, it's like if you're always trying to follow a trend, you're always following, and you want to be a trendsetter or a leader. You know, and Gnarls Barkley said it best, because when he was CeeLo Green with Goody Mob, he said, "I don't want to be in a box," you know, because Goody Mob is a rap group. So he's created Gnarls Barkley, and he did all this stuff. He's driving me crazy. Outkast, they were a rap group. Now, Big Boy kept his rapping and stuff, but they were always very melodic and musical and everything, the way that they flowed. Andre 3000 started doing a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like to where he came like, you know, like he started dressing different. He had like the thing around his head, like
he's an actor too.
He's an actor. Yeah, he was in Four Brothers. He did that, and then Hey Ya came out, which was what the hell?
Explosion.
Exactly. It was huge. And then now he just released it and he's playing the flute. Like, you know, like say what if you like it or whatever, but you can't say like Chaos is the perfect example of something one from up here. And people like them because they like for what you're doing, and what you're doing, there's gonna be people, like there's how many millions of people in the world, billions actually, and someone's gonna like what you're doing. Now there's where the business comes. You got to market and get yourself to where they can see you and be like, I like this. Did you hear about this guy from so and so and so and so? But yeah, you have to go and, so number one, don't follow trends, be yourself, because everybody's gonna go and they're gonna like you for you. And no matter if you do something that they don't like, I think Snoop Dogg did the song with Timberland a long time ago, and it was like, who's that driving that Cadillac? Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
And everybody was kind of, you know, that's not really Snoop. And then after that album came the blue carpet treatment where they did with Dre.
Yeah.
But they never left him. They were just like, that's not your best, but you're Snoop. Like you're talking about, you know, you're Snoop, you're cool.
Correct.
You know, and you have so much going on and everything. So that's one thing I can always just say to people is just always just be yourself. Don't worry about whatever the music it is that you like. I like I said, I like a bunch of different things. You know, I couldn't see myself I can't play any real instruments like that, but I can't sing. And one of my favorite groups was Jodeci. And if I could sing, I'd be Casey all day and overly doing it, shirt off, blousing boxers, jeans, high black Timbros. I'd do the whole thing. But I'm not Casey. But then you know who did do that was the group that Cisco was in, Drew Hill.
Drew Hill, yeah.
Now, Drew Hill sort of because they did have good music, but their whole thing was Jodeci. And if you go and you pick one or the other, maybe a generation, because you had millennials to Gen X or whatever in between those years in the 90s.
Yeah.
They're going to jump to Jodeci because they were the trend setters.
Yeah,
they were the guys when in the 1990s when we were wearing cross-color and Tommy Hilfigers and all these colorful clothes, and R&B was to look like Boys to Men and all this other. Jodeci and even Belle Biv DeVoe.
Yep.
Jodeci came out. I remember watching them at the American Music Awards. This R&B song group, right? You guys know Jodeci. And they sound nothing but love songs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They came out, some bondage mask, a shirt with no torso, leather pants, glasses, hat back. I remember looking, I was like, but these are R&B guys. That's
they
not
look
their
hard.
look.
Yeah.
They're dressed like rappers. Correct. And Belle Biv DeVoe, when they came off New Edition, and New Edition, I always have to give them their 1-2 steps. Their choreography is always on point, and it even leaked over into Belle Biv DeVoe. But they were clean. New Edition, a little edgy as they got older. But Belle Biv DeVoe came out, one shoe red, one shoe black, hat with the tag on your shoe, shirts inside out. This. Changed it up. They set the trend, and then people came and Timberland started rocking. I'm sure people were wearing Timberlands all the time, but for R&B people, it was completely different.
Yeah.
It was different. And that's what I'm saying to other people is like, because there's always going to be someone who's going to do that. I don't know, but like it or not, Lady Gaga came walking out in a dressed in meat. as clothing.
Yep.
That's not my cup of tea. I'm a meat eater, but I
pause,
eat that meat. Well, I like steak and beef, right? But she came out with steak as an outfit.
Yeah, I remember that. That was crazy.
And you know, it's weird, and it's like, what are you doing? I don't know. She's making a statement. That's her.
Yeah.
You know, Prince wore high up shoes and
Exactly.
Versace tight pants.
Prince is a great example of all that.
And women loved him, and nobody questioned his whatever.
Nobody questioned his masculinity.
Nobody.
Which was so bizarre to me, right? I was like, how's he getting away with this, right? Because he was so original.
That was him.
He was so original,
And he owned it.
And
he owned it. He was so confident that he made you believe that was masculine.
Yeah.
When any other guy on the planet dressed like that, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Now you match that up with his playing abilities.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it was like, that was him. That was his look. Like,
was-
you know, like that's if you were to picture a Prince, not a Prince, but Prince, if you looked any other way, it wouldn't be how you picture Prince now. Same with like a Lenny Kravitz.
Exactly.
And all those guys. And then so to that point there is like, that's what I would say. It's like all the other things and everything, that's good as well. The core is who you are. Like the music here. Some people, you're not going to please everyone. And that's for a new artist coming up. That's one thing that is always going to, at one point, and even as you go and get more into it, you're always going to have that one, like when somebody says something like, you know, like he sucks. And you just say, you're like, you know, you don't say to yourself, you suck. Maybe you don't even know. But you're like, oh, man, I thought that was good. A little prick in the side. And you're like, geez, you know, why do you have to say that? I tried. You know, but they're always going to you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And but the main thing is that the people that get you and that you want, that have a feeling and vibes the same way that you vibe, they'll get you and they'll come to you and they'll talk to you about, I'm glad you did a song like this. Like people talk to me about Made to Move Mountains. Like I made that song, you know, like at one of low points in my life. And then people come up to me now. That song was like 2010.
Yeah.
2008, 2010. And it only came out in Germany at first. Because it was for like when they had all those dance movies, Stepping Bigger, Step the Yard, Bounce the Yard, You Got Served. There was one called Stomp the World. It was over in Germany. That's where that song went. And if you look on the YouTube, because it's on a different, like I had to go and re-put it on my page because it was just the director of the video put it on. They made their own YouTube page and put it on that. And I was like, well, why would you do that? It's my record. Mm-hmm. So all the views started to go over there. It was up like at one point it was up to like 500,000 or something like that. All the views went over there. So I was like, what? So I tried to, but you know, they're there. I can't transfer the views. But like but yeah, like that was like the big, that record really hit people up till today. And then it came over here. And I would look on the YouTube comments and it would be like, what was the comment? Something like put a star, put a thumbs up or whatever if Stomp the World brought you here.
Yeah.
And Stomp the World brought them here. And then you have in comments, they will do like the dance scene that it was in. I'd actually never seen the part of the movie that it was in. People told me, they're like, oh yeah, I was in the part where they're all dancing. And I was like, well, the whole movie's dancing. So what part is it? You know? But like, you know, but I've never actually seen the part that the song was playing. But they were like, you'll see it all up and down that one. It just says thumbs up if the movie brought you here. And it did. And then it came over here. And then people still over here are just hearing it. This song now has over 10 years of legs. And people are still just hearing it. Like the outreach in Leamington is named after the song. Because they heard it. Because it's called Made to Move Mountains Outreach. And they called it that and asked me if they could use that title because of the impact of what was in the song. And that song, it was like, you know, usually I'm like, let's ride, let's go get girls over here, this, yeah, we chilling, partying, blah, 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 and things like that. Made Mountains was a completely different song. It was like a skyline title. It was like an internal reflection, talking about what, like, you know, the whole purpose is like, no matter whatever, you were born to move a mountain. You were born to do something.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. And the energy of that song, everybody, they're like,
energy's big, man.
Yeah.
Energy's a big deal. I mean, that's a lot of what you guys have talked about here today is like, you know, when you have this positive energy, right? You talked about like people, you know, sticking you in the side saying, oh, that guy's crap, whatever. mean, that's always going to happen. You know, it's a yin and a yang situation. Wherever you have positive, you're going to have negative.
Yeah.
The key is to be real agile at letting those people go.
Correct.
Don't letting those people cling on to you, just moving forward, you know, and surrounding yourself with as many people that believe in you, believe in what you believe in,
Correct.
and are positive, right? Which is what you're talking about when you talk about building up
Absolutely.
Saint T and all the Rodney and Ingersoll, I think is the other one, right?
Ingersoll, correct.
And so, you know, and all the rest of it, I'm sure there's more to come. But like, to me, I've always said, you know, I'm a proud Londoner. I always have been, you know, and everything I've ever done, I've tried to keep it out of London, and tried to rep London. And, you know, I'm really happy that, you know, you guys and Dan Broadbeck and a bunch of other people have said, you don't got to leave your hometown.
No, hell no.
Because, you know, and that's part of why I got involved with the UNESCO thing and tried to make London the city of music for Canada. Is they're like, you know, I think that you shouldn't have to leave your hometown, that you should be able to do what you love with the people that you love around you and your family. And, you know, because that's all part of that positive energy that, you know, that's made you who you are, you know, is your family. And whether your family is the people, you know, your actual family. Some people don't have that. So some people have these close friends or these ride or die people like you talked about, right? Yeah. And the fact that you brought one of those along with you for the ride is huge, right? Because it makes you guys twice as strong in the scene, right? So I think that that's huge, and you know, hats off to you guys, man. I think that what you're doing is incredible. I said that's the first thing I said to you when you came in here today is I think what you guys are doing is incredible, and if more people do what you guys are doing, the world's going to be a whole better place, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, appreciate that.
So thanks for so much for coming on the show, you guys.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us here.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, man. Sure. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. This is Ryan signing off from Music City Live. We'll see you on the next episode, everybody.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Music City Live. If you liked this episode, like the video. And for more clips and episodes, subscribe to the channel. Feel free to join the conversation by commenting below and visit us at musiccityliveshow.com.